The date was November 9th, 2015, and there was only one thought that kept rumbling around in my mind throughout the day: Fallout 4. One more day until Fallout 4. I had the day off work, I had the game preloaded on my PC. I was ready to fall in love with Fallout all over again. It was the first time I had felt this excited about a game release since Mass Effect 3. When the day finally arrived, I played and played and played Fallout 4. I had absolutely zero doubts that I would beat the game, get all of the achievements, and explore everything that I could. Except that I didn't. I played 106 hours of Fallout 4, but I didn't beat it. I bought the DLC, but I didn't play it. And I was never really angry with it, I just got bored. Now for most people, myself included, if you told them that you played a game for over 100 hours, they'd probably say that you got your money's worth. I mean, it makes sense. There are games that I paid $60 for that I played for 20 hours, and I think that I got my money's worth out of them. But something about me never bothering to complete the main storyline, to drop the game outright without further interest in the DLC and halting my achievement quest, it tells me that there's something more to this than I haven't really jumped into with a discerning eye. Of course, I realized that most people regarded the main story as a flop, that the settlement mechanics were more annoying than entertaining after a certain amount of time had passed. I've heard what's wrong with the game and what could have been done better. But if you ask me what exactly went wrong, I wouldn't be able to tell you with any semblance of clarity because I honestly don't remember much of the finer details at this stage, only some of the more overarching issues. So to clarify my video format, since I've gotten some questions about this before, I'm basically going to be playing through the game. I'll be hitting the major factions, anything that piques my curiosity, and of course the main storyline. There won't be a ton of structure, it's basically just me going through and giving my feedback on the ideas and various mechanics, characters, locations, and storylines throughout the game as I play it. If I note that something could have been done better, I generally try to tell you what I would like to see instead. The game is a far cry from Fallout New Vegas, which is generally regarded as the best game in the franchise despite it being 6 years older than number 4. and I want to know what's holding it back. There will be spoilers. I'll be talking about story elements. Just letting you know. Oh, and I've got a sponsor about halfway through the video with NordVPN, so please don't be alarmed. Please. To kick things off, Fallout 4 launches with one of those old timey black and white cartoons which depict one of the 7 special attributes. I actually really enjoy these a lot. They're these weird mix of cute, retro, and horrifically violent. The game then leads into the main menu with probably my favorite rendition of the theme which debuted in Fallout 3. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy them all, but the over-the-top orchestral sounds of the same nostalgic notes being hit really reach into my head and give me a giddy sensation more so than the other 2 versions. What? Did you think this was going to be a non-stop negativity fest of me tearing down this game? Nah, man. Not yet. So anyways, after firing up a new game, we're treated to, surprisingly, a live-action opener which is done extraordinarily well. There's always a risk with this kind of cinematic, a fine line between cheesy, over-the-top melodrama and flat, underbaked nonsense, and Fallout 4 surprisingly gets it right. Seeing how everything played out in this alternate history is really fun, and the inclusion of the timeline's technological advances alongside real humans is pretty damn cool to look at. Though I have to say that while I know that the whole war never changes tagline that always precedes and concludes these games is a staple, I feel like it's a bit played out at this stage. It's a minor gripe, but I just felt like saying it once at the beginning was good enough, instead of concluding the opening dialogue with the phrase also. Either way, welcome to our main characters. You get the choice between dude or wife, and struggled to comprehend Bethesda's lack of facial animation technology. Face animation. Face animation never changes.
Just another minute, I swear.
Fascinatingly enough, you can actually start as a ghoul in this game, which is interesting considering the bombs haven't fallen yet. I've always enjoyed messing around with the character customization and appearances in games, though this one does get a little cumbersome to try to get just right. After messing around with the horror monster maker for a solid 20 minutes, I finally accept my character and move on to making my character actually move around the screen.
Spin the mobile a bit. He loves that.
Yeah, this is basically just supposed to be a kind of walk around, look at things, pet your ugly son kind of experience. Eventually, the salesman comes by to let me know that I've been pre-selected to become one of Vault-Tec's residents, and to fill out my character info. As far as character creation and first impressions go, this is easily the most bland beginning when compared to any of the previous Bethesda published entries. though it is intentional just due to what follows. I do miss the little quizzes and interesting presentation of point allocation from other games though. That said, let's go over the special attributes here. I know, it just seems pretty straightforward and unwavering from Fallout 4's counterparts, but there's actually a pretty large difference in what's considered more important and less important in this game as opposed to others. For example, most endurance perks and the stat itself is widely regarded as pretty useless when compared to charisma, as a huge chunk of the game actually revolves around speech checks and leadership when base building. There is some pretty cheesy stuff going on with the Aqua Boy perk, which falls under Endurance's jurisdiction, but for the most part the attribute seems to be unnecessary by most accounts. Additionally, luck is considered to be pretty damn important, possibly even more so than New Vegas. From here, most of the other attributes are usually pointed out as being equally important on a surface level, and it's recommended to choose the ones that fit your playstyle the best. I love a good melee build in most games, but for some reason I've never had a great time with it in Fallout just due to how unpolished and clunky it tends to feel when compared to a game which implements it properly. So for my build, I'm going to focus on intelligence, charisma, agility, and luck. I have to say this is probably the first Fallout where I felt like I can't immediately pump a stat up to 8 or 9 without another stat suffering. As I only have 28 points total to spread, as opposed to the 40 points that you receive in previous Fallouts. That said, the leveling system makes up for this by allowing you to skip a perk in order to increase a special stat, much like the old Intense Training perk. I actually don't mind this too much, as it gives me something to work towards during my adventure. So anyways, our midday plans are blown away by incoming nukes, which has us running to the nearby vault for safety. I actually like this a lot, as it does a really good job of conveying the fear, the sheer panic that must have been felt by everyone during this end-of-the-world moment. It's easily the flashiest beginning sequence across all games, especially when compared to the relatively bland start. So here comes Vault-Tec to start fucking with its residents. Compared to some of the more insidious vaults out there, this one's actually pretty tame, but its experimentation does seem to involve telling its citizens to step inside a decontamination chamber before giving them the Walt Disney treatment and sending them into cryostasis. So our character wasn't so lucky as to get a regular control vault or anything like that. I just want to know how the people behind us reacted when they realized that everyone in these supposed decontamination chambers were turning into popsicles. Maybe they were just told that it takes a while. Anyways, after being frozen for an untold amount of time, our guy wakes up to see his wife and his son's chamber being opened. When the people who opened the pod try to take his son away from his wife, she refuses to give him up and she finds herself on the receiving end of a bullet in the lower right shoulder. I know they didn't want to show her head being blasted open, but they could have at least hit her heart or something because she's fucking gone after that shot. Oh well. You get Han Solo'd again before waking up later to the cryo chamber losing power. I actually do dig this setup. You've walked through what it was probably like for a lot of people. You're tricked by the company that claimed to protect you. Your character is in a constant state of confusion because everything happens at once. The execution, on the other hand, could use a lot of work. For one, I have no attachment to my spouse here. She's kind of this blank canvas, and there's no character building at all. I get that it's a Fallout game, and your spouse was never going to be an integral part of it, but I have hardly any positive interaction before all of this that lets me appreciate my wife as a character, and even less so with my child, Sean. And it really doesn't help that he looks like someone scanned a Cabbage Patch Kid into a copy machine and slapped the image as is over a bump map for the baby's model. But I really wouldn't have minded something along the lines of a small montage of vault life before the experiment was initiated. The family being together, Sean growing to be maybe 2 or 3 years old, little activities which involve learning about the situation in the outside world while bonding with your family. Even a 5 to 10 minute array of this kind of stuff would have lent a lot more importance to this moment. But nah, chick who I've known for all of 5 minutes and 10 lines of dialogue dies, and they take my baby. The worst part about this is that I did feel bad when my character starts scrambling frantically while trying to look for a release hatch to get to his wife. But it just falls flat when I finally do open the thing and he goes from sounding like he's going to have a mental breakdown to, "I will avenge you, woman." No crying, no sadness, no intense anger. Just a controlled and calculated one-liner about vengeance. Oh well. Now the counterpoint to all of this is located within the Overseer's log in Vault 111, in which he details that the bombs falling and the staff shoving the citizens into cryotubes worked out solely because people didn't have time to question the chambers that they were being put into. I can respect it, I just don't have any connection to my family because of it. The logs also basically state that they were waiting for an all-clear signal from Vault Tech before unsealing the vault, though the Overseer believes that the mandatory 180-day waiting period would be by no means enough time for the errant irradiation to disperse. The problem is that supplies had started to run low at this stage, and a mutiny soon takes place, following the same old tradition of the security team leading a rebellion against the Overseer and his loyal staff. The entire purpose of this experiment was to basically just freeze people and note what happens to their bodies, which, is pretty tame. I would expect something more devious like them leaping forward a few years and studying them after pretending that no time had passed. Maybe even a couple of times instead of just once. Would have been more interesting, but as it stands they were just to let whoever die as long as they maintain 20% of their initial population, and then carry on with observations. Weird. When I finally grab my Pip-Boy and step out of the vault, I head back to my house only to find my previously pristine neighborhood in shambles. But my big dumb robot did survive, so that's a positive point. He's pretty much in complete denial about everything, noting that my wife and son must just be off somewhere despite me telling him what happened, and complaining about how hard it's been to attempt to clean everything over the past 200 years. From here, we scan the neighborhood while the tutorial rolls forward, until eventually Codsworth directs me to the closest town that seems to be somewhat still populated, Concord. This has me departing from my friend to immediately find a new friend, a dog simply named Dog, at least for now. He becomes my first follower on my adventure, and I begin looting and shooting my way over to Concord. Anyways, let's get into the structure of how I'm going to tackle this video from here on out. We're going to start with a lot of the mechanical stuff. Notable combat mechanics, types of perks and how leveling functions, speech interactions, that kind of stuff. Then we'll roll the story forward until we get to things like power armor, crafting, and settlement mechanics. And then we'll finally begin tackling the game's various main factions and storylines. Let's start with perks. So I actually love the perk system in Fallout 4. Whereas the games that came out prior basically had you slowly discovering what you can unlock with perks via the distribution of skill points over stuff like energy weapons, barter, science, etc., Fallout 4 ditches the skills and allows you to see every single thing that you could unlock immediately. This means that if I had 10 points in luck from the get-go, I could immediately start investing into the Ricochet perk. Additionally, every skill has 2 to 5 different stages which they can be upgraded to, meaning that the possibilities for perk investment are pretty damn huge, and I don't feel like I'm going to be struggling to figure out which perks I want to throw my points away on in the late game. Though it is fair to note that the later stages of these perks oftentimes have a level requirement to keep things from getting out of hand. It does kind of suck that you can't increase your individual skills the way that you could before, but I don't feel like this is a lesser system because of it, just a more streamlined one. I found myself writing down everything that I wanted on a notepad, which is a great sign. Next, we've got combat stuff. Generally, it follows the same kind of rules that the other games follow. You've got VATS, you've got shooty guns, you've got hitty melee, you've got fisty fists, you've got bonus sneak damage. It all feels relatively Bethesda. Gunplay feels a little better, though still not amazing. I do like the mixing of old and new in guns like the laser musket, which allows you to charge your laser shots by mashing the reload button, which also makes it do a lot more damage. The human AI is about as dumb as it's always been, although humanoids do attempt to move up slowly behind available cover, and will blind fire in a direction that they think you might be if you're still undetected and are shooting in their direction, which is a plus. It just never seems to matter if you're some god wielding a minigun and power armor or just some dude in a vault suit with a pistol. Enemies will always charge you and fight you to the bitter end. There could be bodies heaped onto the road from your carnage, and the last raider will yell at you and charge you like you're still outnumbered 20-1. Beyond this, there are some minor tweaks to combat that make things a little bit more dangerous than usual. For example, VATS now doesn't outright pause the game. Everything instead moves at a fraction of the usual pace, making your percentages shift if the target moves behind or out of cover during slow motion. Additionally, Stimpaks aren't immediate menu heals which keep you going, at least out of power armor, and instead heal rapidly over time after your character jabs himself with one. The game doesn't pause instantly upon attempting to access a terminal or pick a lock, and you can be hit out of it if something is bearing down on you. I overall actually like these changes, as they break a bit from the outright safety of jumping into a hack menu to override a turret, or loading up on stims and instantly being back in the fight. And then there's the crit system. Weirdly enough, there are no critical hit chances in this game. Instead, the system has been overhauled to basically allow you to build up crits in a meter, allowing you to execute them when you see fit. I actually don't mind this change either, as it allows me to store a crit for a crucial moment instead of relying on chance. It's the main reason why luck is so coveted in this game. Armor is an interesting point in that you can find little chunks which slide over other specific clothing. Like I can throw on a left shoulder and a right shoulder onto my vault suit and mesh them together to create a set of armor which may be better than another outfit which can't slide other bits onto it. While the concept is cool, boy does some of the endgame armor look fucking stupid. Like, look at this. This is supposed to be some of the best non-special armor in the game, and I look like somebody fucked a crash test dummy to make me. I get that it's supposed to be more function than form, but have a heart, Bethesda. Where's my glowing, lightning-infused weeb set that doesn't make any sense from a lore perspective? Nah, I'm kidding. I just wish I didn't usually want to choose a lesser armor so that I didn't look like I just escaped an insane asylum. An alternative to this is the power armor, which is one of Fallout 4's big draws. They wanted to really make the stuff more versatile in this game, allowing you to switch out various pieces the way that you can with normal armor to assemble new suits. It's a decently implemented mechanic that definitely makes you feel a little more unique as you drudge through the Commonwealth, but it really does muck up the lore of the franchise, which I'll get to in a moment. Next we have speech. Oh boy. Now I'm not talking about intimidation or persuasion or any of that. I'm talking about the actual written dialogue choices in this game. This has been memed to hell and back, but I have to say this. The so-called choices in this game are more often than not fucking worthless. When I talk to someone, I generally have a yes, no, maybe, and more information button. Pretty much all of them do the exact same thing and have a negligible impact on the game's dialogue. I would honest to God rather have a two-option choice here than be jerked around by the game while it pretends like I made some profound decision that impacted it more than deciding between water and diet water at the store. Or, here's an idea for a multi-million-dollar franchise with 6 years between entries. Write more dialogue. There are almost 0 points in this game where I naturally went, I wonder what would have happened if I told that girl maybe. Actually, there may just be 0 points where that happened. There's no replayability when it comes to dialogue. No thought in my mind of creating a different character who answers things differently.
They killed her.
Sir, these things you're saying, these terrible things, I believe you need a distraction.
She's in a better place.
Sir, these things you're saying...
He's gone. God
damn it. Someone took him. Someone stole my son.
It's worse than I thought.
There's just no reason someone would take my son.
It's worse than I thought.
What's in Diamond City? Is Sean there?
Look, kid, I'm tired now.
You've told me nothing. It's all just guesswork.
Look, kid, I'm tired now.
Let's just hug this out and get it over with. What do you say?
You can play it however you want, tough guy.
Reese, that's enough. Like it or not, you're going to have to learn to work together.
Are you upset that I'm staying?
Maybe.
Reese, that's enough.
I don't have to prove anything to you.
Yeah, you do.
Reese, that's it.
I got tired of wandering alone.
Too bad. I was getting used to the thought of you leaving.
Reese,
You have a goddamn Geiger counter?
No, I don't have a Geiger counter.
Wait, what?
Why do you need a Geiger counter? Is this place irradiated?
Wait, what?
I got one built into my Pip-Boy.
Wait, what?
This shit drives me crazy because there's absolutely no punishment for being an asshole. Because there has to be a reward. If there's no reward, Todd gets angry. So I can sit here and go, oh, I was just helping the Minutemen out because that's the kind of guy that I am. And I can go, you stupid fucking wannabe colonial garbage. You fucking hat-wearing, buttoned-up shirt, musket-wielding, overall useless excuse of a human being who can't do anything besides get 75% of his men killed in a matter of a month. And he'll go, whoa there, fella. You're a little rough around the edges, haha. But I can tell that you're a good guy. So here's your reward, haha. It just makes the game's dialogue that much more superficial. I mean, honestly, there are ways around this stuff. You can have Garvey tell you to fuck off after you insult him, and then maybe some other person likes that you stood up to him and rewards you while agreeing that Preston's Minutemen concept is bullshit and that you should splinter off and form your own group. You can still have your reward from another source while receiving the proper reaction from the person that you just insulted. Honestly though, after seeing this, it really makes sense that NPCs weren't originally in Fallout 76, because this is how they were treated in Fallout 4. They're not here for story or to make the game feel more alive. They're here to dispense quests and rewards. At least that's how Bethesda seemed to view them for the most part here. It doesn't matter what you tell them, they're still going to tell you about where to go, what to do, and give you your little Skinner box rewards to keep you sated on your adventure. Don't get me wrong, as much as I just gave this whole system a load of shit, I do appreciate that every option was voice acted. I know it's all preference because some people are going to have a harder time identifying as their own character if everything is voiced, which is understandable. I don't personally mind it though and can respect the amount of effort that both main character voice actors put into their lines. But it is hard to distinguish between what they're going to say every time. I've mentioned the yes, no, and maybe, but some of these lines are so ambiguous in how they're presented that you can go in thinking something like, oh, my character's going to ask about what it's like to be a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. And instead, my character goes, so, how's being a member of the shittiest, most overbearing motherfucking... And you sit here like, whoa, holy shit, where's my last save file at? I get the whole surprise factor that makes things more interesting in a way, but what's wrong with the old method of a dialogue box that actually tells you what you're going to say? The final thing that I'll say about speech is that I very much dislike the fact that they axe the unique bits of dialogue that can be accessed via having a certain amount of points in a particular skill or a specific perk. I know that they also got rid of skills and, like I said, that's okay. But I would have loved to have had certain chunks of dialogue correspond to having 8 intelligence or 2 points in the scrapper perk or something like that. But then Bethesda would actually have to figure out how to make more than a 4-spoke wheel for their dialogue tree. And Lord knows that would be confusing. Or they'd have to cull some of the carefully written and brilliant dialogue that comes with the maybe, not sure, or sarcastic dialogue options. And I wouldn't want their hard work to go to waste. So instead we get the occasional bit of dialogue that's a different color, and you pretty much almost always press it because it's shinier than the usual green dialogue. Anyways, back to it. When I get to Concord, we meet everyone's favorite new character, Preston Garvey. Old Garv is currently in the middle of attempting to defend the place that he's holed up in from bandits. meaning that I gotta help him out so that we can get to defending settlements. This has me taking out all of the bandits on the inside and chatting up the Minutemen here, until they tell me about a suit of power armor that's located on the roof of the building. Wait, what? I'm 30 minutes into this game and I get power armor? Yep, that's the epitome of Fallout 4. It takes all of that stuff that you had to work for in older games and goes, here you go, have fun. This one in particular has always made me scratch my head though. Power armor has always been this prestigious thing that few factions could successfully use. It takes rigorous training to wield properly, and it was almost always acquired in the mid to late game. And I feel like its entire existence is cheapened here by the player being able to grab it and use it with no proper training. You could argue that our guy learned how to use it when he was in the military, but it makes even less sense on the female counterpart, who was apparently a lawyer before she settled down to have a kid. I don't know. I think this is more or less a taste of what's to come in the game. Because let's face it, jumping into a suit of power armor and grabbing a minigun to spray down bandits is fun. It's cinematic almost. It makes you feel powerful immediately. But it just slaughters the lore of the series and tosses its corpse down a cliff. This kind of immediate gratification doesn't end there though, as a Deathclaw pops up to greet you while you're hosing down the bandits. Let me reiterate that for you real quick. A Deathclaw climbs up to fight you. I'm level 3, In every other game, these are some of the mid to late game enemies. You don't fuck with them until you're heavily armed and leveled. In Fallout 4, you just murder one immediately. Why? Because someone went, wouldn't it be badass if you could go toe-to-toe with a Deathclaw immediately? And that became Fallout 4's design philosophy. Fuck the lore, do badass stuff instead. Who needs to get bogged down by old stories and designs when they can operate a suit of power armor and swap out the parts like they rolled up into a mechanic garage in GTA to spruce up their car? And I honestly wouldn't even have an issue with this if they took the time to make sure that the player earns it. Maybe the player hops into the armor and they can't move very well in it. They can use it, but it's hard to pilot properly until they can make it to a power armor master to teach them how to use it properly. They can customize a little bit, but they get the really cool ideas and designs from the specific power armor mechanics scattered across the Commonwealth. I do know why it wasn't done this way. It's because Fallout 4 was designed with that feedback loop which so many other recent Bethesda games have adopted. Is it fun to drudge all the way to some trainer just to earn your power armor privileges? Or is it fun to just get it and use it and modify it? It's hard to judge a game for sticking to one option and doing it well because Fallout 4 does take that fun factor and expands on it pretty efficiently. I just wish a lot of the lore bits weren't scrapped to do so. There is a middle ground here. Either way, we return back to Big Press, who compliments me on the tactical brilliance of holding down the mouse button in armor which makes me pretty close to unkillable at this stage against an enemy who has to stop and swing in order to hit me. I tell him that it's all in a day's work. Or I tell him that we're not friends. Or I tell him literally any of the other options and he goes, haha, right partner. Then he asked me to join him in Sanctuary to do all the work for him there too, but not before a lady with psychic powers tells me that I have to go to Diamond City because my son's still alive. I'm trying to be a more positive person, but this game's writing is really holding me down right now. Let's go to Sanctuary and learn about the base stuff so that I can finally rip the band-aid off.
My son. Somebody took him away while I was still trapped. I've been looking for him.
Damn. I'm sorry. I hope you find him. Let me know if there's any way I can help. Anyway, I am glad you're here. And I hope you don't mind, but I've got another favor to ask.
I've had word from a settlement asking for help.
This is about as close to PTSD as I hope that I'll ever get in my life. So base building is the thing that Todd was super excited to show off at E3 when Fallout 4 was announced. You free a settlement, you build it up and fortify it, you arrange things to be as comfy as you want them to be, and you gather supplies and materials that you need to make them flourish. As much as I hate to admit it, it's a pretty decent system. It's fun to build your bases and get them working and make them shine. It's cool to revisit them and add a little more each time. It's great that they took all of these junk materials from other games and gave them their most proper use yet by allowing you to transform them into building mats. But the single biggest issue for me was always how fucking needy they are. The problem with making something constantly need supervision and attention in your game is that if you're going down the completionist route, it's super hard to outright ignore the various requests for settlement help. The very last thing that I was trying to do when I quit the first time was get a settlement to maximum happiness. I can't recall if it was bugged at first, but I do remember spending hours and hours just hammering away at every little request and trying to make one of my many settlements the happiest that it could be. It was really too much, if I'm honest. And I almost would have rather the game said, "Alright, are you good on settlement stuff? If so, you can just have them take care of themselves without your interference. But if you want to keep helping, you can leave this option off." Because when you get into that groove of, help this settlement, defend this one, bring things to this one, build up this one, it's really hard to just break away and go, okay, I want to do other stuff now, at the expense of your settlements faltering. I think it would feel a lot better if a settlement could get to a certain point where it didn't even notify you for help anymore, where you aided it enough to make it sustain itself. That would make me feel like I accomplished something. In addition to using the workshop to build whatever things your settlement needs, such as a source of water, food, defense, and beds, you can also clear out the really ugly looking scrap and bits to clean the area up, and then use that scrap to make superfluous items and structures which are nicer to look at. And it is addictive, which is the way that it was designed. I love breaking down all of these little eyesores and then building up my own bases. It's really its own game mode at this stage, so as much as I've complained about how much it needs, there's definitely something to it that makes me want to build more and spend my time making things right. On top of this, your main base at Sanctuary gives you access to armor and weapons workbenches, which utilize several perks to take full advantage of. I actually really like this as it feels much better than ever to craft and modify my own stuff in Fallout 4 than it did the other games. My shitty old pistol feels more like my own when I soup it up, and looting seemingly random parts to enhance my loadout feels more rewarding. Plus, if you paint your armor, you do more damage. That's just science, like painting flames on your skateboard to make it go faster. Again, the game isn't all bad. In fact, for as much grief as I've given it, I have to say that most of my experience with the actual mechanics of the game so far have been pretty goddamn enjoyable, because that was the primary focus when creating it. Alright, let's get this show on the road and start hitting these factions. So in the base game with no DLC, there are 4 main factions which have quest lines for you to complete. Here's the issue. All 4 of them can't be completed the same way that you would be able to complete the Dark Brotherhood as well as the Thieves Guild in Skyrim. They kind of overlap and wind up with you choosing a side to complete the game with. So what we're gonna do here is start with the Minutemen, get to a jumping off point, and then move on to the other factions in the same fashion. So this whole ordeal starts with the Garvs teaching you how to initiate a new settlement into becoming a part of the Minutemen. This has you taking out a group of raiders after stamping out some feral ghouls along the way. Maybe I should have mentioned this in the combat section, but holy shit, feral ghouls are fucking awesome. Maybe I'm just easily impressed, but going from ghouls kind of running like injured humans and generally shambling in New Vegas to them lunging and flinging themselves at you with terrifying speed is amazing. Like, they're actually pretty frightening at night, which is definitely an upgrade in every way. And this non-humanoid enemy upgrade extends to pretty much every creature in the Commonwealth. You've got rad scorpions which pop up from the ground and chase you pretty quickly. You've got these giant mosquitoes which can stick you and drain your health fast. Even the mole rats ferociously fling themselves at you, making them pretty damn hard to hit. They're incredibly well done, and it makes the game surprisingly difficult at earlier stages unless you sneak more or take the power armor route. I suppose some endurance is going to help you if you're really struggling, but I found that the best defense is a great offense in this game, and increasing my damage output usually saved my ass more than trying to beef up my defenses. After dealing with the actually relatively difficult to fight raiders which are holed up in this factory, I get to catch my breath before moseying back to Settlement 2 to let them know that only my steady supply of iguana kebabs kept my wounds closed. They're impressed by this superhuman feat and join our cause, propelling me to the position of General of the Minutemen. You know what that means.
Now it's your job to make it more than an empty title. I've gotten word about a settlement that's being threatened by raiders.
Yeah, I gotta do this a few more times before I can get to the next stage with these guys, unfortunately. This encompasses more raiders, mole rats, and ghouls, which again proved to be pretty damn hard early on. I need to get some better weapons, man. Even though I decided to write down all of the perks that I wanted early on, I actually found myself straying from my outline to try to pick up stuff like Scrapper to get better materials to modify my loadout better, and generally focusing on more combat-oriented perks. It's tough out there, but I really didn't mind it as much as I thought I would. I don't feel like some legendary wastelander, at least not yet. I feel like a survivor who's barely making it. And this is on normal difficulty. It's very Fallout 1 and 2. The biggest thing to change here to tone things down is less charging straight out into the far reaches of the Commonwealth, as enemies seem to get tougher the further you stray from the Conquered and Sanctuary areas. Unfortunately, the way that I've routed this video actually makes it difficult to just go full Minutemen, and then go down another path, as enemies don't seem to straight up scale with you the same way that they do in, say, Skyrim. It's not a bad design choice, it's just different. So before I press forward with the Garvinator, I actually need to pivot to helping out the Brotherhood of Steel until I feel more comfortable. The first interaction I have with the Brotherhood is assisting these guys who are fending off a horde of feral ghouls. After I help out, the Paladin here decides that he likes the cut of my jib and invites me to help them out in raiding a technology-heavy facility. This absolute mammoth of a man is Paladin Danse, and he's about as zealous as they come, believing that the Brotherhood of Steel is the most noble of noble groups. Of course, if you know anything about the Brotherhood, they tend to be a viciously brutal group of fanatics who hoard technology and slaughter anyone in their way to do so, using the guise of saving humanity from themselves as a veil to explain away their bloody march through the wasteland and/or the Commonwealth. Danse is no exception, as he pointedly tells you of the Brotherhood's noble mission, while dismissing your sarcasm as the ramblings of someone uninitiated. The scribe in the group, Halen, leaves her personal log just sitting out on the table, which gives a glimpse of the more savage side of the Brotherhood. She notes that while she thought that she was joining a just cause for protection, much of her path has subsequently been filled with death and destruction in the name of helping humanity. It's a nice counterpoint to Dance's stoic sense of heroism in the name of the Brotherhood, and I do appreciate it for what it is. While it does still make little sense for the Brotherhood to be on the East Coast given previous game events, Bethesda's intent on keeping them on as a main faction while referencing a little history from the third entry. It is what it is, and there's not much use getting into the logistics at this stage. So it's off to ArcJet Systems, where we get the first taste of a pretty frequently occurring enemy exclusive to Fallout 4. Well, technically there were a couple in Fallout 3 which were referred to as androids, but Fallout 4 really takes them up a notch. So synths are a manufactured group of robots who look and function to various degrees as humans. Earlier models tend to be more inhumane with skeletal bodies and act more like Protectrons and other robots, whereas later models, which have had more invested into them, tend to look and act more like humans, with some being nearly indistinguishable with their synthetic flesh and blood, aping the replicants from Blade Runner. Really though, the way that synths look, the way they're treated, and the way that they act tends to be an amalgamation of several different franchises, from Star Trek to Artificial Intelligence to iRobot. Because many of these walking death machines have been programmed to perform specific tasks by one of the factions in the game, many view the synths with large amounts of warranted distrust.
I swear, I'm not a synth. Don't shoot, for God's sakes, we're family! He's a synth! He'll kill us all! Kyle, no!
I'll touch a little more on how synths came to be, more specific instances of the ways that they're utilized, and their role in this game later on down the line. For now, what you need to know is that the Brotherhood of Steel very obviously views them as walking, talking abominations to the highest caliber. Paladin Danse is no exception here, as he constantly mutters and shouts about synths being a blight that must be destroyed as you explore the ArcJet facility where they roam. After running through the place and melting Danse with a rocket,
Oh my God, are you all right?
we grab the tech that these guys have been searching for and boogie out before Danse gives me his legendary weapon, which will definitely help me perform a little better with combat. But we'll hit one more quest for the Brotherhood before looping back to the Minutemen. So now I'm very suddenly part of the Brotherhood, which is a little off-putting because I've been a sarcastic asshole who has been asking for promotions and rewards. I would say that this is a shitty judgment call on Dance's part, but you have to remember that I could have stuck my nose clean into his sweaty paladin armored asshole and really jerked him off while telling him how great he is at crusading against those naughty synths. And Danse would have reacted the exact same way and took me in while lecturing me about what it means to be in the Brotherhood. Not that it really matters, seeing as Danse then explains to you that he can only really bring you on as an initiate, so at least there's that explanation. So now I gotta help out Eddie Van Halen and her sidekick, this piece of shit.
You can play it however you want, tough guy. It's gonna take a lot more than completing one mission to impress me.
Reese is at least a little more apprehensive about my intentions, which is more than I can say about Danse. But he's an asshole, so I don't like him. Anyways, my task is killing shit and finding shit, because that's what most expendable initiates do. This is no issue and takes, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes to do. When I get back, Danse has a bigger mission which somewhat overlaps with the last mission that I did for the Minutemen. This means that I already have one of 3 holotags and tapes of the fallen soldiers which were sent on a mission 3 months ago. The other 2 are a bit more trouble, which has me taking on a whole slew of super mutants. Fortunately, I've got more of a bite to me now, and I'm feeling a lot more confident in battle. Eventually, I make it to the last Brotherhood member who was in on this operation, who's holed up in a bunker and has gone fucking insane. This is actually one of the few times where things can go differently depending on how I talk to this guy, as a couple of failed speech attempts cause him to open fire on me, and one of them convinces him to come back to the Brotherhood's fold if successfully pulled off. When I get back, Danse gives me a congratulatory cap satchel, and I feel ready to march back to the Minutemen. Well, the main mission here is to take what most people probably set up as their main hub if they decided to transfer from Sanctuary, the castle. When I arrive on the outskirts, I get the choice of heading in guns blazing, luring the enemies out, or trying a pincer attack. Luring them out is probably the smarter option, but I went with pincer, which is very appropriate considering our enemies here are Mirelurks. I fucking hate Mirelurks. They've always creeped me the fuck out, especially in tight quarters. Things go pretty well at first until Todd decides to give us a sneak preview of one of the world bosses in Fallout 76 via a Mirelurk Queen, which is fucking huge and horrific to look at. So I do what every pro player does in this situation, throw grenades and run. This thing won't jump off of high ledges, so the plan here is to run to the top and jump down and shoot it repeatedly until it dies. It's actually a pretty intense fight, which has me using pretty much my entire supply of ammo and makes me feel relatively accomplished afterwards. Of course, when all is said and done...
Which reminds me, I've got another trouble spot for you to check out.
Yeah, of course. Well, fortunately, I don't actually have to do these to progress the next bit here. I just have to chill out for a few days before PGRV gives me the real goods, which consists of telling me to go to the castle. When I arrive, this lady who used to be a Minuteman back in the 40s or whatever, tells me that there's a big-ass loaded armory here hidden underneath this security door thing. Unfortunately, we can't get into it, but she does know a way around.
Tunnel's blocked by this rubble. We'll have to find some way to clear it.
If only that worked for the stupid security door. This is a pretty brief quest in which I clear out this underground passage by strategically assigning Ronnie here to get blown to shit repeatedly, and then build an artillery piece afterwards. The artillery is pretty cool in that I can call in strikes when I find myself in a bad situation. So I know this is gonna be weird, but that's actually it for the Minutemen for now. This video is kinda hard to structure, because basically there comes a stopping place where you have to progress the main story to a certain point in order to continue down a route with a faction. And usually when you do wind up getting to that stage, the choice that you make is irreversible and winds up with the other factions turning against you. So let's head back to the Brotherhood for now for some more heretic hunting. Wait, hang on. No, I have to complete Act 1 of the main story for this. Shit. As much as this prerequisite structure is ruining my video flow, I actually don't mind it too much. Everything kind of flows together, which is what they were going for here when they designed the storyline. Sure, it doesn't work as well when I'm trying to talk about every faction one at a time, but it tends to make for a pretty seamless experience when you're playing without looking at a block of quests on a wiki. The whole game is kind of set up in the same way that the ending quest chains are set up in previous games, with quests for different factions playing off of each other in the main story, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So where does this leave us? Well, I can't interact with the Institute for a while, which leaves us with the Railroad. Finding the area where the Railroad faction is situated can be done through several different ways, but the easiest way is going to be heading to the main city in this game, Diamond City, which is going to trigger a whole mess of quests related and unrelated to the main story. I'm going to ignore them for a moment just for my own sanity while typing this script, but just know that Diamond City is basically the New Vegas strip of Fallout 4, seeing as it's a city situated in the ruins of the Boston Red Sox Fenway Park, which is probably something I'd have never thought to come up with. So, the Railroad. Well, the concept is there, but the execution with a lot of the finer points is very sloppy. So the way that you find out about the Railroad is from stuff like finding a tape detailing their existence or overhearing some people talk about them. The way that they're whispered about makes them seem like they're some kind of super hidden underground society, which is what they're supposed to be. They're the futuristic version of the Underground Railroad, which was used to transport former slaves which escaped their bonds back in the early to mid 1800s. In this case though, they help synths who have achieved clarity to a degree where they've become sentient and indistinguishable from humans. Like I said, it's a good concept, but here's where the stupidity comes in. So when you overhear about the railroad's existence, you can begin seeking out clues to their hideout. This isn't like, knock on this specific door 4 times and pass a test where someone tells you that they're a synth and that they need your help to escape their master just to see how you'd react. It's literally a fucking red line that you follow around dangerous parts of the city. Every 1/8 of the way there's a marker on the ground which gives you a code that literally spells out the word railroad when put together in the correct order.
4 L. Definitely a code.
Wow, what a brilliant system that no one but the biggest brained and most sympathetic people could follow. Well, this red line leads directly to the railroad's base of operations. Are you kidding me? Well, when I'm through solving the riddle of the century, I get blinded by lights and get a few heavy guns pointed at me.
The Institute treats synths as property, as tools.
That sounds like slavery.
We did it, boys. We ended racism. God, you make these people have a pretty interesting cause by injecting pseudo-racism into your video game in the form of how robotic humanoids who have achieved sentience are treated by society. And then you make both the dialogue and the path to the people fighting this oppression some of the most shallow shit that you can imagine. Why are these people this surprised when they painted a fucking literal bright red line to their base and made the password the same as their username?
And you just happened to guess the password to the secret door. Right.
I think the thing that pisses me off the most is this big production where I have these guns pointed at me like this is a real life and death situation. And yet I can tell these guys, nah, I don't care about synths. They're basically machines. And then Deacon goes, so you want to join? We could really use the help.
Aren't synths just machines? And machines are tools.
Would you risk your life for your fellow man, even if that man is a synth?
No, probably not.
No shame in that. Every person needs to know what they're willing to die for.
Listen, are you interested in the railroad? Learning more? Maybe joining?
No, I'm not.
Hey, we're not for everyone. Come to think of it, we're not for practically anyone. But if you change your mind, you get the idea.
I have no problem with the Institute.
All right. That I wasn't expecting. In which case, I think you're right. We really aren't a good fit.
But we can't turn away people who'd risk their lives helping us just because they don't say the synth Pledge of Allegiance loud enough.
Still not interested.
Maybe when you see more out there, you'll be back.
Dude, I said I have no problem with the Institute. That synths are just machines, everything that these guys stand against, and they're still like, well, I mean, you don't have to agree with everything, you know? Why did you just interrogate me at fucking gunpoint? The fact of the matter is that Bethesda is too afraid to let people fail, to let them choose, to accidentally or intentionally seal away a faction from being a choice. I mean, I can just blast important NPCs away and they just sit on the ground and don't give a fuck. In a game where you can save at any time, even during dialogue, where you are constantly able to make manual saves and are getting autosaves, you cannot fuck yourself over by telling someone that everything they stand for is bullshit. There really isn't a reason for this beyond the idea that this might upset some players. That them being an asshole to everyone that they meet in the Commonwealth should be chalked up to, well, it's just the character they're playing. They're still the right person for this. It used to be that you'd play a Bethesda game or a similar game like this and you'd see that one option. You know the one. It's the one that you look at and go, ah yeah, if I say that, this guy's gonna hate me, he's gonna attack me, he's not gonna let me in, something's gonna happen. And it was realistic to a degree, right? You choose to say that one option and you're gonna have to deal with the consequences. And that just doesn't happen in Fallout 4, at least not with anything significant. So whatever, here I am, ready to fight against the mean men who are keeping the synths down. Deacon fills me in about stalking me for a while following my exploits with the Minutemen and telling me that the Railroad desperately needs help, which is a lukewarm attempt at explaining away the leader's indifference towards however you choose to answer questions. He then tells me that he wants me to meet him somewhere else so that I can do a job. This job does a little better at explaining the Railroad's feelings on certain dividing lines, which is nice. For example, the first 2 generations of synths tend to be more akin to Protectrons, as I mentioned before. So does the Railroad protect them and their rights too? Well, it depends on who you ask. Some members believe that all synths deserve protection from those who would lash out against them. Others believe that only the 3rd generation are human enough to deserve the same rights. This is a pretty realistic argument to have, and I like that the Railroad isn't perfect in this way. Unfortunately, the other ways that the Railroad is imperfect include stuff like these little chalk signs that we need to follow to get to the guy that starts this job properly. Deacon's a cool character. I actually like him a lot with how he's willing to transform his body and undergo surgery to constantly throw off any enemies of the Railroad. But then he starts excitedly going on about how the Railroad has all of these cool little secret signals and signs and whatever that sound more akin to a group of little kids with their secret passcodes that aren't so secret. Like their last base was supposedly super secure and hidden away under an old donut shop, right? But the Institute found them somehow and blasted their base to shit. So what do they do to ensure that their new base and whatever operations they have going on are protected? They paint a fat red line with the code spelled out to their new base. They draw these little chalk circles with arrows that point towards their agents. The best part about these chalk circles is that they literally start at the bottom of this ramp that only goes one direction across an overpass to their agent at a dead end. It's just silly. Oh well. So we get into the old base and are now looking for some kind of prototype device designed by one of their doctors. Pretty straightforward stuff that has me dealing with these Gen 1 and 2 synths as I work through what appears to be some kind of old government facility that the Railroad was using before I'm sure they decided to put up some neon signs that read Railroad this way, and the synths somehow found the facility from there. When I get back to the HQ, Deacon lies his ass off to try to get me into the good graces of the leadership here, telling Desdemona that I carried him through the facility and single-handedly killed 100 synths while disabling a minefield. But most importantly, after Dez is sufficiently impressed, I get to join and choose my super secret code name. Because again, the Railroad is organized like a bunch of kids playing at being spies. All of these nicknames suck, so I choose no nickname.
I don't want a code name.
Code names aren't optional.
You have to have a code name or you're not allowed to join our secret society. You know, Todd was really stoked about being called Bullseye by all of the Railroad's voice actors. Thank God he forced us to experience this pleasure for ourselves. Alright, so the next task that I have to complete for these guys involves securing a safe zone and then escorting an escaped synth slave to safety. I know I'm supposed to be always angry about everything regarding the Railroad, at least so far, but I do like this quest. Helping these guys get this synth to safety, interacting with him with how timid he is, it's all very heartwarming and feels good. So at least I can credit the writers with that much. Anyways, this basically concludes the breakdown of the Railroad, as I can only continue side questing with them for now. So now that we've reached the temporary end with all 3 available factions, I'm gonna pop into Diamond City after a quick word from our sponsor, NordVPN. So I live in Germany now. It's going pretty alright, all things considered. But if there's one thing that I need, like actually need, to go about my life the way that I'm used to it, it's a good VPN. And NordVPN has me covered in spades. Let me show you an example of my life without Nord. Look at this. No one knows what this means. Mehr Anzeigen? Ich stimme zu? Who can make sense of this ridiculous... Who can make sense of this ridiculous European privacy protection law stuff? No one. But with Nord, I don't have to. Nice try, EU law. But more importantly, I can watch American Netflix. And that's what we're all after at the end of the day. And with 5,200 servers... Wait, holy shit, really? Yeah, well, alright. With 5,200 servers, Nord's got you covered if one isn't working out on a certain site, which happens to me every here and there. Plus, you get your data protected if you've decided to go out into public. You know, for like groceries and whatnot. The list goes on and on though. You've got double data encryption, no data logging, unlimited bandwidth, and
an automatic kill switch.
But if things aren't working out, if Nord's 24/7 customer support doesn't cut it for you, if you suddenly need the extra money unexpectedly, there's a fantastic 30-day money-back guarantee. No strings attached. So please feel free to up your VPN game and get 68% off NordVPN using my code, nordvpn.com/salt, or use the coupon code SALT at checkout. That's only $371 per month plus an additional 4 months free. Thanks, guys. What I hadn't mentioned before was that on my way into Diamond City, I met another one of the potential followers in this game, Piper. Piper's an interesting lady who's all about reporting the honest truth and doing everything she can to get the next big scoop. She's the epitome of a hot-headed, go-getting reporter who has nothing to lose by printing the truth and shaking up the government structure here in Diamond City. The biggest thing that I noticed is how crazy well done some of the animations are in this game due solely to her losing her temper and swinging her arms around. It's really, really too bad that the facial animations just can't keep up. Because honestly, the way that she swings her body around and flails her arms and throws her frame in whichever direction has provoked her ire really causes me to realize just how far this series has come from the relatively bland and static NPCs that were presented in prior games. Then you look at her face and it's just a cycle of default emotional states and ugly stretching that really ruins all of the effort put into the over-exaggerated and painstakingly detailed movements. Anyways, we're still on a mission to find our son, who we described in detail as kidnapped. This leads us to a detective to try and get us some help with this endeavor, Nick Valentine. Well, as it turns out, Nick's gotten himself into a bit of trouble after he went after a lead and walked into a trap which got him into hot water with a gang of Tommy gun-wielding mobsters. So I offered to help him when talking to his secretary.
Hey, I'd love to help, but there's a small matter of expenses.
Money, huh? I do have 125 caps in the old rainy day fund.
Come on, this is your boss's life we're talking about here.
Fine. We'll make it 150 caps.
Last chance. Put some real money on the table or we're done.
Okay, you win. 200 caps is all I have.
No way am I getting mixed up in this.
So off I go to save Nick, who's actually located in another vault. Usually I like to save these for another video where I do side quests and the like, but we might as well talk about it while we're here. There's nothing particularly off the wall about Vault 114. It's built into an old subway station, which doesn't make the most sense as noted by one of the gang members down here. Regardless, it looks relatively shitty, and not at all luxurious, which is the polar opposite of how it was advertised. The big experiment here was that Vault-Tec was basically going to find the upper crust elite members of Boston and tell them that they will have a vault exclusively built for them with all of the amenities and luxuries that they were used to on the surface. Instead, the rich folk were going to be shoved down here and forced to share bedroom areas and bathing areas with other randomly chosen families, and generally had access to the most bare bones of human needs. Then Vault-Tec found someone who had issues with authority, who tended to be down on their luck, and made that person the overseer. The staff was told to never undermine the overseer's authority, even when they decided to embarrass, berate, or physically abuse the citizens of the vault. It's a pretty tame vault compared to some of the more fucked up experiments which other vaults underwent, but I do enjoy the concept, especially when it's tied to a completely unrelated quest and isn't the main highlight of the area. Also, it doesn't actually seem like this experiment went into effect, as there doesn't seem to be any telltale evidence of terminals which explain how things went beyond a few recordings left behind in which a person from Vault-Tec interviews different candidates for the position of overseer. The one that they settled on seemed to be a crazy homeless person by the name of Soup Can Harry, who doesn't trust the government, sleeps in dumpsters, and eats a Braxo cleaner. Sounds like a winner to me. Too bad I couldn't find anything about the exploits which may have happened here. Well, at any rate, we get to Nick, who's revealed to be a synth. He doesn't seem to be a Gen 3 synth, more of a Gen 2 actually. But he speaks like a human and exhibits a ton of different conversation phrases and mannerisms which you'd likely find in an average person. I guess he's a bit more old school and talks a bit more like an old-timey detective from back in the day, but overall he's a pretty unique and interesting potential follower. So we bust out of here, taking out the mobsters who occupy this unfinished vault. Eventually we make it out into the gangsters' leader, Skinny Malone. Apparently Nick and Skinny know each other from the past, as Nick mentions that Skinny owes him for serving 2 weeks in the hole, as Nick puts it. I smooth-talk the lady who's at Skinny's side into leaving him and running back to her father out in the Commonwealth, which really activates Skinny's almonds. He begrudgingly lets us go, unknowingly preserving his own life in the process, and I skate on back to Diamond City. When we get back, Nikki V and I hash out the details about everything I know and remember about the kidnapping. Eventually I describe the main kidnapper, the bald man with a scar over his left eye. Immediately, Nick suggests that it may have been someone by the name of Kellogg, who he's been trying to track down for some reason or another for a while now. I actually enjoyed this little back and forth detective work, even though I know how this mystery winds up. There's something about the whole bouncing ideas off of each other kind of thing that makes for a good story. I'm sure it won't get mucked up later on or anything. So we head out to Kellogg's last known location, where he had purchased a place here in Diamond City alongside a 10-year-old boy a while back. The most important bit of this conversation is detailing the Institute and what exactly it is, or at least as close as the general public seems to know about them. I've mentioned the Institute a few times in name only now, but they're basically a group of mysterious individuals who carry out certain actions in the Commonwealth which terrify people. Yet no one knows what they want or who they are. What people do know is that they've designed the synths, and have ordered Gen 1s and 2s to strip down entire towns of their parts while killing everything in them. Additionally, they also supposedly have Gen 3s slip into human societies and pull the strings to ensure that things go their way. It's why paranoia runs so rampant in Diamond City in particular, as it's been deemed a no-synth zone. Actually, that's a good point. One of the security guards tries to calm everyone down by telling them that there's no synths in Diamond City after a scuffle happens when a man accuses his brother of being a synth. Yet here Nick is with his detective agency headquartered in DC. Maybe they were just talking about Gen 3s before. So anyways, we head up to the locked house with a master level lock on it. I haven't gotten my lock picking that high up yet, so I head over to the mayor's office to ask for a spare copy. You know, I don't think I brought up this particular pet peeve of mine before, but I feel like every game which has me following an NPC somewhere makes it so that I walk too slow or run too fast to keep pace. It might just be a PC thing due to not being able to press the keys lighter to walk slower, but it's always been a super silly thing to me that you're playing something where you have to follow someone and you either skyrocket past them or slowly lag behind them with no in between. This has been my TED Talk. I make it to the mayor's office and Piper is being as abrasive as always, screaming at the secretary about the mayor working with the Institute and meeting one of their secret couriers constantly. After the secretary sends her away, I'm allowed to see the mayor. The funniest part about all of this to me is that there's this armed guard out front going, "Hey, no funny business in there with the mayor." And yet there's no one to stop me at all from killing him right there in his office. Or I guess there is something to keep me from killing him, seeing as he's apparently a champion of Todd Howard. It really would kill you guys if a single player decision broke your magnum opus of writing, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, boys, we sure are playing a role-playing game, I tell you what. Anyways, the mayor seems reluctant to part with Kellogg's key, but ultimately decides to give it to me, telling me that this is a fruitless endeavor. Sounds like someone has something to hide. I never touch on this later in the video, so yeah. We check out the house and it's been abandoned and all that. There's nothing here really, not even behind the secret door that Kellogg had installed on the side of it. What we do find is a couple of cigars though, to which my character suggests that we use dog meat to track Kellogg down with. So we follow this literal trail of lawn chairs that have cigar ashtrays and beer bottles next to them. Because you know, that's what legendary master mercenary Kellogg does apparently. With the amount of times that I've heard, "Ah yeah, that house was abandoned. Kellogg used to live there," it really makes me wonder how the fuck there's such a pristine, untouched pathway of cigars and beer and bloody rags to track one of the best mercenaries in the wasteland with. Like, a German Shepherd can track scents up to a week old, but this guy sounds like he's been out of the picture for months or years or something. And then there's just this goofy on-rails trail of lawn chairs and enemies to follow. I don't know. When we get there, I start stomping through this synth army, which nets me some of that goofy-looking armor that I mentioned earlier.
God damn it, you mercenary motherfucker. Where is my son?
I really can't take my guy seriously when he looks this way. Either way, here's Kellogg, who's been Dagoth-erring me this whole time with his warnings over the intercoms on my way down. When I get to him, he stands down for a moment to do what all good villains do. Tell me where my next objective is. Well, kind of. He tells me that Sean is indeed a bit older than I might have expected, and is now part of the Institute. So what you're saying is that a literal baby was raised into becoming a part of the Institute, one that would never remember his mother or father. So yeah, even if we got to him and he was 10 years old, he's only ever going to view his father as some lunatic who came in while killing people he grew up around and raving about him being his real dad. Either way, we get to fighting and down goes Kellogg. I take his cybernetic enhancements from his body, and Nick suggests that we go recruit Piper to help out with the investigation, and she may have a lead on where the Institute could be located. Well, when I step outside, I'm met with this gigantic airship, this fucking colossal beacon of steel and technology floating through the sky and shouting at people below.
Our intentions are peaceful. We are the Brotherhood of Steel.
Honestly, it's really cool. Say what you will about the Brotherhood's methodology, this is definitely a very effective show of force. Unfortunately, I'm guessing that Nick won't be welcome into their, ranks. But hey, let's shift from the main story to find out. Well, all seems to be normal to a, degree. Cambridge now has dudes in power armor just shooting shit and looking badass, and Paladin Danse is sitting here like a giddy schoolgirl at the prospect of war getting ready to happen. He excitedly tells us that the airship called the Prydwen is basically a mobile fortress, and it being here means ass-kicking is about to happen. Cool.
Yo! So, we got the Brotherhood coming in on this cool air balloon, right? Let's make the player, get on the vertibird to get there, dude.
Oh, bro! That's so sick, bro! Yo, what if we okay, hear me out, bro. You remember that one time when we were playing Call of Duty and we got on the minigun?
Yeah, bro, man.
Oh, dude, what if the player could
do that now, in our game, dude? Whoa, but bro, what would they shoot, bro? Oh, shit, bro, you're right. What if we had them shoot Mirelurks and shit? And super mutants? Oh, bro. Dude.
Red licorice or black licorice? I say both. Oh, you think you've had licorice?
So we hop on a vertibird and fly on over to the Flying Vertibird Deployer to meet up with the elder of this chapter of the Brotherhood, Elder Maxon. Those of you who have kept up with every bit of Fallout lore might recognize the name Maxon as the founder of the Brotherhood of Steel. Well, this new Maxon is a descendant of that guy, and the last in line of the lineage. He appears in Fallout 3 as a 10-year-old boy, actually, making him 20 in this game. It also makes him the youngest elder to ever exist in the Brotherhood's ranks. This is actually a pretty cool homage to the franchise's lore, even if some of it might be a thing solely to appeal to some of the lore scroungers out there. When we hop off the bird, we get greeted with this higher-up guy who's like, yeah, you kill good, but you don't lick the Brotherhood's big tight asshole enough yet, initiate. Now go see Maxon. Alrighty. Yeah, no one here gives two dicks about Nick the walking plastic man running around and quipping about whatever he sees. Except for this guy.
You disgust me.
Not much of a sight yourself.
You know, someone asked about the logistics of bringing the very thing that the Brotherhood wishes to destroy on board, and someone higher up went, yeah, but that wouldn't be very fun and interactive for the player, now would it?
The Institute and their synths are considered enemies of the Brotherhood of Steel, and should be dealt with swiftly and mercilessly.
Yeah, alright. Could you at least address that there's a synth here? I mean, for fuck's sake. So I get promoted tonight, and am now ready to take on the duties that come with it, which apparently means meeting and greeting all of the important people on the ship. Danse is still stoked about being a loyal lapdog, going on about how the Brotherhood used to be in shambles 10 years ago when they started to do really stupid things like being charitable and getting along. But now they're all about seizing technology from heretics. God bless them. So I take my tour while kicking Nick out from the environment he never should have been allowed into in the first place, and swapping him out for Danse. This is an okay little detour on my adventure, as I get to have some interesting and humor-filled conversations with the main players around here.
Have you ever had sexual relations with any species considered non-human?
That happens often enough for you to have a question about it?
Eventually, I complete my tour, pick up a better suit of power armor and regular armor, and then head back to Sanctuary to do a little inventory management while Danse busts a nut at every little gun and power armor modification that I make. Then it's back to Maxon for a real mission.
Bro, minigun sequence. Minigun sequence with Skyrim monster. But with super mutant.
After taking out the super mutant swarm here at Fort Strong, I secure a room filled with boxes and boxes of mini nukes. This is terrifying. We've got loads of some of the most destructive ammo on the planet, and we're giving it to the technological fanatics. What could go wrong?
Signal grenades can call a vertibird to your location when you need aerial transport.
Anyways, this is again a stopping point for the Brotherhood until the final batch of quests can be completed. At this stage, all 4 factions actually pick up after I make it into the Institute, meaning that I've got to send Dance's overly excited ass back to the Hindenburg to fantasize about power armor and power armor accessories for a while. The best part about the next quest is Nick going, "Yeah, we need to bring on Piper for this mission. She really knows a lot about the Institute." And then she's literally worthless in this conversation. Like Nick goes, "Well, only Kellogg really knew how to get into and out of the Institute." Yeah, what if we got a chunk of his brain and brought it over to this place in the town of Goodneighbor where people can relive past experiences in their memories? Yeah, let's go there. See you later, Pipes. So we head over to State Farm, watch a guy get shanked, give a lady something that used to be inside a dude's brain. You know, average stuff.
What's this? This isn't a brain.
Wow, thanks, Einstein. You want me to point out what else in this room isn't a brain, starting with that sponge inside of your skull? So the good doctor here tosses the implant into Nicholas here, who can't make heads or tails of the memories within. She concludes that the memories must be encrypted. The solution that she comes to is that we should both hop into these brainy chairs and I'll dive into Kellogg's memories while Nick acts as the host. I know this is all pseudoscience for the sake of the game's plot, and pretty much everything here is just made-up fantasy, but you're telling me that the Institute had enough foresight to encrypt Kellogg's implant, but didn't think about the possibility of someone just having a friend to try and break the encryption with? It just seems like a stupidly simple fix to something that was designed to keep people from viewing something. Then again, someone literally wrote the words, "This isn't a brain," and decided that it passed as feasible dialogue, so this probably isn't too much of a stretch. Anyways, into Kellogg's brain. Of course, they wanted this to be a grandiose presentation that made you feel for Kellogg or get to know him better post-mortem or whatever, which is alright, I guess? But realistically, Kellogg was a part of the story here for a solid 3 missions or so. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know he kind of kicked this whole business off, but they never really let you interact with the man himself until it's time to kill him. Had they let you meet him a few times as he's getting away, or had him listening to some of his thoughts while tracking him via holotapes, or something that made you wonder what he was all about, then this memory process wouldn't seem so out of place. I mean, the first thing that you do is see this guy as a kid, and it's just about the most cliche shit that you can imagine. Oh, his dad's a piece of shit, but his mom loves him and encourages him to be different. Oh, he runs away from his home and finds love and has a kid. Oh, the wife and the kid die because he tangled with the wrong people. Oh, now he's a big bad mercenary who has just become bitter because of his shitty life and is now killing others for money. Just, I don't know, completely droll, run-of-the-mill background. I mean, come on. Let Kellogg have a good mom and dad who get murdered for not producing enough caps when they get mugged. Let him start thinking that earning caps is everything in life and eventually seek revenge when he gets older. Let him figure out that he actually really likes mercenary work before he eventually has to kidnap Sean. Then let him learn to love again with this newly adopted boy, who he basically raises as a son while he does his mercenary work. Something like that would send some pretty mixed emotions to our character, I'd imagine. Well, eventually we get to the memory stage where he joins up with the Institute, and I get to see my loving wife's face again through his memories. So we finally get to the end in which Kellogg was supposed to be dispatched to the Glowing Sea to take care of some Institute scientist who had gone rogue. For some reason, he instead decided to run to the base he holed himself up in and waited for me. So I guess that's a thing. I suppose it was somewhat close to the Glowing Sea's boundary at least. So our objective now is to follow this scientist named Virgil who Kellogg was supposed to blast, and figure out what he knows.
The Glowing Sea? That doesn't make sense. No one goes there. Not even if they were desperate.
That's why he's there. To make the Institute think twice about following him.
That must be it. He's using the radiation in the Glowing Sea like a shield or a cloak.
Who wrote this? Man, no one goes there ever. Why would he go there? Probably because no one goes there? Oh yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Very cool. Okay, but seriously, it goes deeper than that, right? The Institute is so dangerous because it uses synths. It uses robotic men, inorganic life forms, things that don't care about radiation. Do you see where I'm going with this? The Glowing Sea is perfect to shake people because it's a giant irradiated hotbed, except for shaking people that don't care about radiation. Why are you like this, Fallout 4? I mean, maybe you can say that Gen 3s are going to be susceptible because they're still basically made out of organics, but Gen 2s should be fine, I would imagine. I mean, spoiler alert, Nick can accompany me just fine. It makes no sense to me why they would send Kellogg's Frosted Flake out to the Glowing Sea unless they really wanted him to be killed by it. Or they really just thought that dispatching this one guy had more of a chance than dispatching, like, I don't know, 20 expendable Gen 2 synths? Or a combination of the two. I don't know.
Nick.
Hope you got what you were looking for inside my head. That was right. I should have killed you when you were on ice.
You want to try for round 2? Let's go!
What? What are you talking about?
Wait. Were you just playing a joke on me?
Neither of those were sarcastic. Before I dive into the Glowing Sea, I figured that I should spice up my power armor so that it can better support me in my escapades. As lukewarm as I initially was about the power armor becoming a part of the game so early on, I do enjoy working on it and making it mine. It's an enjoyable set of upgrades that make sinking points into science and armor that much more fun. Alright, let's talk about the Glowing Sea. This is hands down my absolute favorite setting in any Fallout game. Yeah, you could say that it's a lot like parts of the Divide, or very similar to the Long 15 from New Vegas, but it's just so much more, I don't know. It's brutal and ominous, it's mysterious and dangerous. You can walk into it at literally any level after you get out from the vault. It's probably the closest thing that I've felt to the difficulty and constantly on-edge sensation that I felt during parts of Fallout 1's desert bits. The entire thing is covered in this foggy yellow miasma, making it this stalker-esque nuclear badlands complete with rad scorpions, deathclaws, ghouls, bloatflies, and just death. Legendary enemy after legendary enemy charges me, barely giving me enough time to breathe. And the intense sensation that I feel is, well, probably at or near an all-time high across every Fallout game for me. I mean, there's not a lot of things to do per se. There's this bit coming up, and a few locations and 2 more quests, but that's it. I could see the argument that it might be a big expanse of nothing and boring content for some players. Maybe even the argument that there should have been more quests or people to talk to. But it's the Glowing Sea. It's a gigantic irradiated nightmare zone of brutal weather and unrelenting creatures. The idea that there should be more people or things to collect or quests to do is pretty silly, and I personally like things the way that they are. That said, I think you take less radiation damage here than walking at the bottom of the ocean, which is kind of an immersion breaker. I also would have played a bit more with the synths here. Like, what if there was a group of Gen 2 synths which normally would have went about their orders for the Institute, but got reprogrammed to think more like a Gen 3 or Nick does? When the Institute finds out, they decide to hide out in the glowing sea, creating their own little society out here in this hellscape. I think that would have been pretty fun to see. Anyways, I pull myself across this ruthless wasteland, my power armor getting shredded and my ammo running low. When I make it to Virgil, it appears that he recently became a super mutant, much to his dismay. Something that I hadn't mentioned about Kellogg's memories was that we did see a Gen 3 agent of the Institute teleport himself away, which is apparently the only way of getting into the Institute's base of operations. We ask Virgil how to go about this, and he explains that the Coursers are the ones that have access to this technology, this so-called molecular relay. Coursers are something that have been mentioned repeatedly by a few of the main players in this game, and all of them have said the same thing: do not fuck with Coursers. Apparently, they're top-of-the-line Institute-constructed death machines with a single purpose: taking care of the Institute's dirty work that no one else can handle. Besides maybe Kellogg. Well, not anymore. But even Kellogg noted that he was happy that they were on his side, which should say something. They're basically bigger, faster, and stronger than humans, and taking one down would pretty much be suicide. So it's time to take one down for the teleportation chip in its head. Well, with Bethesda being Bethesda, it can't just be a, oh, here's the Courser, go get him. It's more of a, here's the building the Courser's in, and also a fuck ton of gunners to fight on the way up. It's not an issue, it's just more of an inconvenience. Plus, Nick does open up a little more to me and fills me in on his background story about how he saved the mayor's daughter, winning the trust of the mayor and eventually the rest of Diamond City with his pretty heroic exploits. I really do like Nick. His voice acting is top-notch, his background story is pretty awesome, and it's fun listening to him quip about whatever little thing that we're involved in. I'll probably cover what's exactly going on with him in a later video, but let's focus on the task at hand for now. So we make it up to the Courser, who's been after an escaped Gen 3 synth who got captured by the gunners. He pulls the same tactics as Kellogg, by using a stealth boy and constant stim packs. A little less grenades though, so it's actually a pretty easy fight for how badass this guy was supposed to be. Though, to be fair, I've got the easy mode power armor on now, so yeah. After scooping out his chip, I free the synth girl and skedaddle out of here to figure out what to do with it. So I head over to the railroad to have Tinker Tom crack the encryption on the chip, and then make it back over to Virgil in the GC. He's managed to pilot his big meaty mutant mitts to some degree, and has schematics to help me build a teleporter with the decoded Courser chip. The only thing left to do at this stage is to decide which faction I want to go with. Really, I don't think it matters all that much, even though it's implied that it might. I figure that the Brotherhood is going to want me to get approvals and deal with bureaucracy and all that shit, so they're out. And I already used the railroad to decode this thing, so I'll just stick with the Minutemen here.
They call it the molecular relay.
Teleportation? For real? Wow. That would explain a lot about how the Institute manages to operate. I'll let you know if I hear of any settlements that need our help.
Not today. Not today. Alright, get ready for a fucking journey. So I build all of this shit and then zap myself away into the Institute's depths, right? And I find myself in the cleanest environment ever in a Fallout game. Which makes sense, but it's also kinda jarring. I mean, I'm not complaining, it's just so strange. It's like I walked into Prey 2017, but in 2015. Whatever. So I make my way down as the leader of the Institute talks to me, who goes by the name of Father. Well, eventually I make it to a room where 10-year-old Sean is sitting behind some glass. Well, Sean freaks out when he sees this big metal man talking to him and calling him his son, which... yeah, I mean, what did you expect, buddy? This is exactly what was going to happen. Except that isn't a big enough plot twist, which I agree with. Instead, this is a synth boy, and the real plot twist is that Father is my son. Sean. Father is Sean. Did you guys really have to call him Father? So here's the deal. When the Institute started working on perfecting synths to be carbon copies of humans, they needed human DNA that was untouched by radiation. I know that Fallout's entire universe has taken some pretty excessive liberties with the way that radiation works, but it's really hard to ignore it when this was the reason behind the entire plot. I mean, people in Japan aren't living in a radioactive nightmare zone still, even if the nukes went off in the air rather than hitting the ground. But yes, again, this is just the Fallout universe in general. Fine. So they take Sean because he's untouched by radiation so that they can use the DNA. They then kill every other Vault Dweller because they're loose ends. Except for the one loose end that could ultimately cause havoc for the Institute. How does that make any sense? Wouldn't all of the other people in Vault 111 be useful backups for DNA experimentation, in case Sean died or some complication happened? Wouldn't the main character be the one person that they need to ensure that they kill so that he doesn't do something crazy like, I don't know, seek vengeance? But the ride doesn't stop there. What about Kellogg? Why is he still the same age as when he took Sean if 60 years have passed? Well, obviously, they used implants to slow his aging down to a point where he's like over 100 years old. Duh. Okay. So why do we conveniently skip like, I don't know, 60 years of Kellogg's memories then? Like, we see him as a kid, then as a youngish adult, then his escapades as he makes it across the wasteland to the East Coast, and then him joining the Institute, which puts him around, I don't know, 40 or whatever age he was then. Then he kidnaps Sean and it cuts like 60 years into the future where he gets orders to kill Virgil. It's just, I don't know, the whole thing is a plot of convenience. The writers wanted this to be the huge I see dead people plot twist of gaming. The holy shit moment that everyone yells about. But it's so sloppily executed. I mean, hell, even in Kellogg's memories you hear him referred to the old man's orders, which we now know to be father. Except he refers to the old man when he's kidnapping Sean. Yeah, sure, you could go, well, maybe he just always refers to the head of the Institute as the old man. Or maybe this isn't really Sean. But come on. You know that neither of those are true, and we're just sitting here trying to take some whiteout to fix Bethesda's underbaked writing with. The reality is that they wanted the player to be completely blindsided by this plot twist. And while it is a pretty difficult twist to predict, it's not difficult because it's well written. It's difficult because the writing intentionally obfuscates any part of the truth that might lead the player to predict the twist. It's the exact same reason for Kellogg's wacky lawn chair adventure being such an on-rails shit show, despite there being no reason for him to have just been testing out the 10-year-old boy model of Sean for a bit and then running over to Fort Hagen. But I think one of the things that bothers me the most is the fact that my character and Sean are just sitting here shooting the shit about Kellogg and it's like, yeah, fuck that morally twisted piece of shit. Yeah, I lured you to him on purpose so that we could get revenge. Okay, first of all, you built a robot of you as a 10-year-old and had Kellogg escorted around so that you could get me to find him? And for what? Revenge? But why is the revenge worth waging on Kellogg? Kellogg was a fucking mercenary. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but he didn't decide, I'm gonna kidnap this boy in front of his dad's eyes for no fucking reason. That was the Institute's doing. And yet Sean is like, yeah, I figured we deserved revenge in a sort of way. And my guy is like, yeah, fuck that psychopath. Even when I take the dialogue option of, yeah, but I kind of feel bad for Kellogg. Sean is like, after all that he did? No way, I'll never forgive him. He is the reason that you are the head of the Institute. The fucking Institute's the one who hired him. If you want revenge, why are you not trying to take down the Institute from within? Dude, come on. This is some of the flimsiest writing I've seen in any Bethesda game.
Collateral damage? She was murdered.
Killed? Yes. Murdered? I'm not so sure about that.
What the hell are you talking about? I could go on for goddamn ages about this shit. Like, Sean explains that he lived an Institute life, meaning that he didn't really experience love, that brutality in the Commonwealth was just a thing that he grew to accept. He paints his mother's death as collateral damage, stating that he watched the tapes of her death and just kind of accepted it. So how the fuck does he have the capacity to treat Kellogg as some murderous, horrible human, some scum that just committed brutal atrocities when he did it in the name of the fucking Institute? When he was just as much a natural part of the bloodthirsty Commonwealth as anything else. The emotions that this dude has don't sink at all. And you can argue that him stating that Kellogg deserved to die for what he did is just him placating my character. But even when my character sympathizes with Kellogg, Sean's still sitting there like, nah, fuck that guy. Nah, he was a dumb mercenary, fuck him. And then at the end of all of this bullshit dialogue, Sean's like, so yeah, I want you to stay here and work with us. I'll show you that the Institute is the best chance for society to flourish, and we can do great things together. Dude, if you wanted your father to be a part of the Institute from the beginning, you'd have sent some friendly synths to intercept him and bring him immediately to it when he got out of the vault. Awfully fucking convenient that you waited until he accomplished everything that he did before you decided that this was the plan all along, or whatever. God. Alright, I'm gonna have a fucking aneurysm. My task here is to meet the heads of the various departments in this shiny, pristine environment. So here's the main conflict, I guess, when choosing a faction in this game, at least at the moment. You've got the Minutemen, who are generally a force for good and keeping people safe. You've got the Brotherhood, who are a force of selfishness and hoarding technology, while claiming to try to keep people safe. You've got the Railroad, who are a force for good and giving synths their rights, but are generally pretty damn stupid. And you've now got the Institute, who seems to be leaps and bounds ahead of the pack in capability of helping out the Commonwealth and maybe even the world. At least that's how they're presenting themselves now. A lot of people that I meet genuinely seem pleasant to talk to and have nothing but good things to say about myself and Sean, which makes this a very difficult faction to outright say no to. Even the people that aren't as friendly usually are constantly working on some kind of new technological breakthrough, some kind of scientific marvel. It's a lot like how I imagined Big Mountain was before it became the Big Empty. And it makes it difficult to just go, yeah, whatever, these guys aren't going to do what's best for the world. Of course, they aren't all sunshine and rainbows, as the issue of them basically creating carbon copies of humans and treating them like nothing more than slave machines is still a big factor. During my tour, I'm given access to leave and return to the Institute whenever I please, as directed by Sean, which is either an incredible show of faith or a really stupid decision. So now we're finally at the big decision process, I believe, as every route is now fully open to tread down. I'm fairly certain that I could likely perform a few more tasks for each faction if I wanted to and still have the game allow me to choose my side, but I think just running down each questline would be the better way to go here. Since we're already here at Synthville, USA, I'll run with the Institute for my first stretch. So the Institute's first demonstration of how synths running amok can be a bad thing is having me return a synth to their facility who's gone full raider and has made a living destroying other people's lives. It's really not the best example of, see, this is why synths must be controlled, because ordinary humans do this shit too. It is still kind of a wake-up call from the Railroad idea that all synths which gain consciousness are just these pure, wide-eyed, innocent beings that just want a place in this world. After this, we truly reach the point of no return for one of the factions, as the Battle of Bunker Hill rears its ugly head. From the Institute's point of view, this battle starts because they want the synths back which the Railroad has kidnapped. From here I can march straight into battle, or I can turn it into a clusterfuck by informing the Brotherhood, the Railroad, or both. At least that's what the game wants you to think. The first time that I played through this part, I informed everyone and enjoyed marching through the carnage. This time, I told no one, and yet everyone was here duking it out. Okay. Additionally, I can literally kill the Courser who's with me, free or kill the synths, and then march back to Father, who gets mad at me. I can admit that it's my fault and he'll banish me from the Institute. Or I can just shift the blame and say I don't know what the fuck happened and he'll be alright with me still. So technically, the only side that I can lock myself out of here is the Institute, and even then I have to kind of be trying to do so. This whole mission is weird. Like, I don't have to fight at all, I can just walk through the chaos. And then at the end, when I reset all of the synths, the Courser who came with me pops in and teleports them back. And yet, because I'm indoors, I can't simply teleport also because it's considered fast travel. Kind of an oversight if you ask me. Then no one attacks me on the way out despite my actions here, and Nick still stands by my side despite me siding with the people who view him as a machine and nothing more. And then it's as if the quest designers went, wait, they could have just not fought anything. Make it so that Father meets them somewhere else and they have to fight super mutants instead. Nick has a minigun. Anyways, we meet Sean on the roof, who makes me want to burn a hole in my head again because he starts spouting off the convenient excuse that he wanted to see if I would even seek him, if the wasteland would corrupt me, if I could even find the Institute. It's just all so convenient. Anyways, I now get an invitation to meet the directorate of the Institute, so let's slide on down for that. I finally caught up to the part of the story where I stopped playing before, so we'll see if the rest of the game can suddenly wow me. Well, things do not look good for the story after this meeting. So I come into the boardroom, exit my gigantic suit of armor, sit down with my fucking helmet and bear trap the size of Wisconsin on my arm, and listen as my son sits here and starts spouting off super secret information to the room. All of the other scientists and top minds here are just cringing in their seats with every word that Sean is saying, while looking over at the man who can barely see from inside his headgear. Sean then goes on to state that the Institute's goal is to now become completely self-sufficient by firing up a nuclear reactor to power the base's operations. The point of this is to no longer be reliant on other people, the outside world, or the environment. And then my son goes, "Yeah, I'm dying. Also, my dad's gonna be the new leader of the Institute. I know I met him a day ago and his intentions are still pretty foggy, and he's probably fucking insane. But I'm sure he'll be a good fit." And yet this board of people who probably are supposed to be a part of a leadership are just overridden like they're nothing. Good leadership structure. After this circus clown act masquerading as a business meeting is finished, I talk to my son who says that everything is autonomous, so even a 1 intelligence player could run this place. It's more about settling disputes which arise and stuff like that. My character has no option to ask his son about which disease he's dying from, which is great. I'd love to give Bethesda credit here and say that it's going to be an integral plot point later, that maybe the disease that he has is now affecting every single synth because they're made of his DNA. But yeah, nothing like that happens. It's just like cancer or some shit.
Busy day for you, isn't it?
So yeah, I need some technology or another to help us out with this whole nuclear power setup ordeal. Finally, this is the stage where I can outright lock another faction out by siding with the Institute. In this case, it's the Brotherhood. Alternatively, I can skip about 5 main Brotherhood quests by telling them that this shit is about to go down, which is a very strange way to structure a quest line, but alright, sure. I don't know what I expected at this point. So I teleport over to the building and begin blowing Brotherhood members away. There's an elevator sequence, there's a retrieving the technology sequence, there's a robot fighting sequence, there's an escape sequence. It's all there. It's a quest. Yep. I did like that the former employees at this facility were playing a tabletop RPG type of thing over their computers via the email system. It was actually kind of fun to read. When I get back, Father claps me on the back and tells me that another settlement needs— wait, oh no, wrong guy. Nah, he tells me that they were trying to abduct a dude in broad daylight, and that the dude called the Minutemen to try to help him. So now I have to go try to peacefully resolve this conflict. I'm sure I could just slaughter the Minutemen or actually side with them as well, which would likely drop me into their faction side, but we'll chat them up and tell them to stand down.
This whole thing is just a misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding. Can't wait to hear this. Explain to me how this is a misunderstanding.
Hey, buddy, look at me. General of the Minutemen. Highest rank. Leader. Where the hell is that option?
I'm giving you an order, soldier.
Maybe you don't understand. This ain't the military, and I don't have to take orders from you.
Then why the fuck is there a general rank? I'm the general, guys. Let's go attack this base that's causing us trouble. What do you mean you don't want to do that? Yes, truly, this iteration of the Minutemen is the most successful yet. Anyways, I get in there and finesse this guy into coming with us. The most ridiculous part about this quest is the dude that was sent here to talk to him and convince him is super antisocial, as he tells you outright. He's like, yeah, I told them I was the wrong guy for the job like 20 times, but they just didn't listen. And yet I get the option to tell him that he's useless. So I pop back up to Father to tell him that everything's great, and he tells me to give a little speech to the people of the Commonwealth out there. He wants me to record a broadcast that tells everyone in the Commonwealth that we're the future, to not fuck with us, that we're making things better, and also that we have a nuclear power source to fuel our facility. That last one seems a little weird. Why are we telling them that? How does any of this help them as they live in the grimy overworld surface right now? Whatever, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Just like I can tell them literally any of these options and it doesn't affect anything except for my sense of pride and accomplishment. So I head over to DC Radio, plug in some random parts into their correct slots, and head back to Daddy. After powering up the reactor, it's time to attend another meeting, except this time, I'm in charge. No, I'm not in charge, the fucking script is. I can literally go, nah, we don't need to fight the Brotherhood or the Railroad at all. And everyone else goes, yeah, but we kinda do. There's no other option. So anyways, you want more synths or better weapons?
I'll tell you what, you make the call. Surprise me.
Okay then.
The surprise me option has literally never been more appropriate than it is now. So yeah, it's off to war after talking to Sean and having him tell me, sorry Dad, it doesn't matter if you think that fighting everyone in the Commonwealth right after we said that we were here to make everything better is a mistake. We're all on Bethesda's wild ride here.
I'm afraid this is an order.
I'm afraid I'm the one you put in charge here, boy. So I run off and make new holes in all of the Railroad leadership, which upsets me not because I love the Railroad, but because of just how weak this makes the Institute look. I mean, these stupid motherfuckers were never going to be a real threat without my help. They'd be a bit of a pest, but good lord, there's really no diplomacy to be had here? Or just, I don't know, ignoring them unless they kidnap a synth every here and there? I mean, I get where the Institute is coming from, but I also think that it's just sad that their first decision as soon as they announce themselves to the world is murdering a group of people who are misguided in their eyes. The Brotherhood makes way more sense because of their nature and the fact that they would never be open to negotiations, but the Railroad? Eh.
The fastest growing snack category in the United States is meat sticks. But what usually happens when a product...
You know what Valentine dislikes? Stealing from dead people's boxes and strong-arming people in delicate conversations. You know what Valentine is impartial to? Wholesale slaughter of people who are doing something that they feel is best for the synths. Why is this dude with me still? So you want to hear what this dude says about the Brotherhood? Strap yourself in for this logic train. So Father's like, yeah, if we attack the Brotherhood, they're gonna send more people in after us from other areas of the world. And that makes sense, right? Like, these guys aren't just gonna let the Institute exist at all. There will be no negotiating. The Railroad probably could have been convinced if there were some kind of minor concessions made, or maybe they could have just been incapacitated without being killed. Something along those lines. The Brotherhood, on the other hand, is gonna need to be killed. So to combat the inevitability of the Brotherhood retaliating with other forces from across the country, this guy goes, yeah, we're gonna scare the shit out of them. We're gonna show them that they don't want to mess with us. We're gonna let them know that we can just phase in troops from nowhere. Yeah, that's scary. To an average group. But the Brotherhood? If you thought the Railroad were fanatics, wait until you meet these guys. These dudes are fanatics. They'd start recruiting children into battle before they got scared enough to back down without a fight. I mean, attacking them? Yeah, sure, that works. But then not being prepared for retaliation? They'll definitely retaliate, it's only a matter of time. You know, I actually never realized that Dr. Lee is the same Dr. Lee from Fallout 3 until she tells me that she helped get Liberty Prime online. I think that memory just fell by the wayside or something. But yeah, my objective here is to basically escort a synth who is a walking virus over to Liberty Prime, which is the big walking death robot from Fallout 3. Once the synth gets in, it'll corrupt Prime into thinking that the Brotherhood airship is a communist vehicle and blast it from the sky. It's a great plan except for the part where I'm escorting a fragile synth through heavy fire. Why wouldn't they just make a backup virus on a chip and have me upload it? Like from a questing mechanics perspective, maybe escorting the synth causes it to automatically upload with no further input. But if the synth does die, I have to do some kind of puzzle while I'm under fire to upload the virus manually. It just seems kind of weird that they'd hinge their entire plan on this thing living. But then again, you know that it's not actually going to die. It's a Bethesda game. Can you imagine getting some weird game over screen in this game because of an escort dying? So yeah, the assault on the Brotherhood is tough. They make it sound like it's some less fortified location, but holy fuck, dude. This is a battle and a half. It was non-stop carnage for the most part. I have to bust the generators which are emitting this anti-teleportation field type thing so that synths can beam in, and then I have to defend this spindly little robot from dying while it fucks communism into Liberty Prime. It's actually admittedly a really cool fight. Like, I had a lot of fun, especially when it came to knocking out the Brotherhood members that I recognized. I even saw Maxon come in on a badass vertibird to fight us himself, which was really cool. Too bad he got stuck inside a building. Oh well. Prime gets reconfigured and death beams the Hindenburg out of the sky before we teleport to safety to watch the fireworks. It's a really cool mission, actually. So we've finally done it. We've beaten the game 1 time out of 4. You return to Sean, who dies in his bed, surrounded by unfathomable amounts of medicinal and scientific resources. Then the credits roll and your character monologues about how he searched for his son and then found him, and then his son fucking died. And then you wake back up and everything's blue now. Congratulations. Alright, let's give my closing feedback on the Institute here. These guys have repeatedly claimed to be the best thing for the world, for society. And realistically, if they were a genuinely altruistic organization who sought out using their technological and medicinal advances for the greater good, then they'd easily top any other faction in terms of raw potential when it comes to helping out the world. But they're not good people. These guys and their philosophies are steeped in hypocrisy. They're no better than any other threat that they claim to have a hold on the Commonwealth. Because while the Brotherhood are fanatic assholes who will do anything to wrestle control from people and harvest their tech, they're at least very transparent about it. The Institute, and Father in particular, constantly berate other factions for being violent, constantly remarking on specific instances of their actions getting innocents killed. And yet the Institute has no qualms about slaughtering countless lives to strip a town of parts that they need. They have no issues disappearing innocent people and replacing them with murderous Gen 3 synths to make sure that their interests are kept preserved. And that includes a little tale that Nick recites to you about the Commonwealth trying to unite under one banner, and then suddenly an Institute synth infiltrated the big meeting where everyone was supposed to finalize this unification and killed all of the leaders. The Directorate of the Institute will sit here and claim to want the best thing for the Commonwealth, while getting excited about finally getting revenge and respect for all of the years that people hated them and doubted them in the past. The reason that these guys even have Sean as the director is because the leadership back then ordered for him to be kidnapped and for every other Vault Dweller to be murdered besides you. You know how there's like hundreds of super mutants in this game? They were created on the West Coast, but somehow there's just loads over here. That's because of the Institute. They were fucking around with the FEV and made a whoopsie, and wound up creating super mutants. Then they dumped them onto the surface, shrugged, and continued experimenting with their dumb synth gorillas and the like. It's the reason why Virgil hoofed it out of there. Ah fuck, I forgot to give Virgil his tendies. Shit.
Don't you forget our agreement. I've helped you as best I can. If you make it in there, you find that serum. It's my only hope for ever being normal.
Well yeah, anyways, Virgil made a cure for it. You know that those guys in the labs knew about this cure too, and yet they didn't go, oh, we should help humanity out by trying to wrangle the mutants that we unleashed and cure them. The reality is that these guys are basically Vault Tech 2.0. Your son is a manipulative shithead who threw you into the Commonwealth to see what would happen, and then pretended like he cared about you and was longing for you all this time on his deathbed. And the worst part about all of this is that almost no one addresses these things. Occasionally you'll hear something out of someone like Dr. Lee or the like, and I'm sure that your character can grumble about it in some shoddy dialogue. But you can't do anything about it, short of joining another faction and annihilating the Institute. After you see the ending roll, you can't take up the reins and go, hey guys, we're gonna start fixing the wasteland. Can you imagine if you could? How cool would it be to choose between building up the Institute into a powerful, unchallengeable death machine of selfishness, Or a benevolent force for good that does things like cure super mutants, get people a steady supply of resources, rebuild towns, stuff like that. But an ending is an ending in Fallout. You can continue side questing, but anything more is out of the question, and that's a real shame. Let's move on to the Brotherhood, because after all that, I could really go for some ad victoriam. So we're not going to analyze every little thing about the Brotherhood set of quests, because a lot of it is piddly BS that just needs to be done before we get to the real stuff. So to summarize, we give one of the Brotherhood big shots some data that I took from the Institute. We convince Dr. Lee to come back in an almost comical conversation about how the Institute isn't helping the Commonwealth and is destroying innocent lives, much like the Brotherhood is. And then finally, we rebuild Liberty Prime. Unfortunately, the questing structure for this particular stretch of the road is shoddy at best. Before it's time to find parts for Prime, I literally have to talk to Maxon, talk to Lee, talk to Ingram, talk to Maxon, talk to Ingram, talk to Lee, and then talk to Ingram again. And they're always a loading screen away, which hurts in this game because for some reason the load times even on a pretty good SSD are a good 5 to 25 seconds depending on what we're loading. But eventually I do get to re-infiltrate the glowing sea, head through this odd pyramid structure which houses gigantic nuclear warheads, talk to this crazy bastard to convince him that we're here to spread radiation, and then secure the nukes to rearm Liberty Prime. I think the thing that I'm happiest with here is just the sheer amount of pats on the back that the player gets for their hard work with this faction. With the Institute, it always felt like, yeah, I figured you'd do that, you dumb fuck. Here's your next task. At least the Brotherhood is super stoked about how much you're helping out. Now we've got a quest with a good idea behind it, which I actually remember. So you report back to Maxon, who's pissed. He's like, why the fuck have you been working with a synth? And I glance over to Nick and I'm like, oh shit, they noticed. And then he goes, you knew that Danse was a synth this whole time. Oh, you're still clear, Nick. They still think that you're one of them. Yeah, this entire conversation is completely asinine when there's a walking, talking synth just chilling behind me as my follower.
The Institute and its creations need to be destroyed in order to preserve our future.
So yeah, Danse is a synth, which would probably be a great twist if, again, well, yeah. But either way, we're to track and kill the poor bastard now, as he's gone missing right at about the time these guys found out what he is.
Can you believe synths are replacing humans with exact duplicates? Makes me sick.
So we head on over to the Proctor here, who fills us in on how he figured out that Danse is a synth after I ripped the data from the Institute and gave it to the Brotherhood. I know that the Institute was never expecting to be infiltrated by any means, but if I were them, I would have totally put a picture of Maxon in there under some kind of made-up synth designation. Can you imagine that quest? Getting to choose between believing Maxon, who's went into exile, or working for the new head of the Brotherhood which replaced him and taking Maxon out would have been awesome. You could have even had a character arc where Maxon questions his existence and starts sympathizing with synths more if you choose to side with him and reinstate him as the Brotherhood leader. I mean, honestly, it could have been a quest, seeing his father is waiting for me when I break into the Institute. They did know that I was coming. They could have easily thrown some dummy files in there. Oh well. So Haylen's all upset, but then the Proctor reminds her that she's part of a no questions asked, perform your orders or die type of military regime.
I think our best approach would be to identify every location he's ever visited and eliminate them as possibilities one by one.
Boy, that doesn't sound tedious. Fortunately, Haylen confides to me about a location which they promised to hide out in if anything went wrong, and told me that that was likely where I could find Danse. So after powering through to him, I come face to face with Danse, who's smaller than ever. It's actually kind of jarring seeing this usual mountain of a man out of his power armor and dejectedly standing there, awaiting his death. He has absolutely no fight in him. He's just waiting for you to kill him, to carry out his beloved Brotherhood's orders. He tells you that it doesn't make sense, that he remembers his childhood, but that orders are orders. From here you can kill him, spare him, or walk away and he'll kill himself. I obviously choose to spare him and convince him to flee the Commonwealth, but lo and behold, here comes Maxon, who followed me here. He goes on and on about how he knew I wouldn't be able to do it, and then commands me to kill Danse right there. Wait, okay, so the commander of the Brotherhood sent one of his soldiers to go do something, but then didn't trust him enough to do it. So he left personally to go, aha, when I don't do it. Are you fucking kidding me? Does this guy have literally nothing better to do? Why not send a paladin or two with me to ensure that I get the job done? This makes no sense whatsoever, and it's more about writing in that oh shit moment than making any sort of sense. The most fucked up part about this is that, as with any other conversation in this game, the outcome doesn't change no matter what you do. You can Kurt Cobain him immediately and you get promoted. You spare him first and then kill him and you get promoted. You spare him and then fail the speech check and Maxon kills Danse instead and you get promoted. For some reason. Really cool, great quest design. Like I said, I enjoy the idea of Danse being a synth. I think that that's good, but then all of this other shit just ruins it. What's even funnier is that Maxon only follows you if you spare Danse. If you kill him, he's still at the base. I guess he only trusts you in the instance that he knows that you would kill Danse outright. The worst thing about this is that I actually still kind of enjoyed some of the back and forth. I enjoyed Danse realizing that he didn't have anything to be ashamed of, that he fought hard for the Brotherhood and its beliefs. I liked listening to him deciding that he was at peace if he lived or died, since he knew exactly who he was now. I appreciated Maxon's speech about how he believes that synths are just ticking time bombs, and all that they've done to harm humanity. It's a good idea, but it's just... If you wanted this conversation, you could have just had this whole thing take place on the Prydwen. Don't have Danse leave, because honestly, this place that he holed up in has 3 turrets and 2 protectrons, and that's it. It's not even really a level per se. It's just a stage for the story to take place in. Whatever. So I get promoted, and then I get told that the Railroad might build a Lego catapult to attack the Brotherhood with, so we have to stamp them out. The difference between this extermination and the last is that the Railroad immediately knows that we're coming, and that the Brotherhood sends in help. It goes pretty much the same, just with less element of surprise. Though there is one extra step in reprogramming their robot to come work for the Brotherhood instead. But beyond that, same old. The next quest follows the same pattern with even more copy and paste, in which I ransack the mass fusion building for the beryllium agitator, except on the other side of things. What I find strange is how both times that I went to crush the Railroad, I was never given a warning by the game about the decision that I was making. And yet when I went to attack the Brotherhood or the Institute, the game was like, "Whoa there, buddy, are you sure?" It makes me feel like the devs favored the latter 2 factions over the Railroad. They even make sure that you manually go to the teleportation room in the Institute or the vertibird on the Prydwen to arrive at the mass fusion building. But yeah, this mission is literally just a repeat of before, except the Institute got here first. So the reason that the Brotherhood needs the agitator is to get this fat load of commie-crushing construct moving without sucking juice down from the Goodyear blimp that's stationed across the way. So now we get to experience Fallout 3's Broken Steel DLC again, but now with better graphics and 15% better AI pathing.
Probability of Chinese victory. Impossible.
This is easily the most boring quest that I've ever played in a Fallout game. Do you know why this worked in Fallout 3? Because the power armor-clad Enclave had enough of a presence to slip through Liberty Prime's defenses. Plus there was this ridiculous patriotic music blaring out from this big scrap heap that made everything much more funny and kinda cool in its own way. That doesn't happen this time. I take out my weapon a few times expecting to need to be here for some reason, but there's just no need for it. Unless I want to try to siphon some XP before Prime obliterates whatever it's looking at. It's just a bunch of scripted little events like behemoths spawning in and Prime one-shotting them. And it gets really old after like 3 minutes. But the march lasts a good 10 to 12. Why am I here anyways? These guys wanted me to escort this impossible to hurt thing for some reason, but it's very evident that it doesn't need help. I mean, I guess you could say that they don't know what could possibly happen, but I mean, this is just ridiculous. It doesn't even remotely get hurt. If the devs wanted to show this off like it was some kind of awesome event, they could have had me follow it for a few minutes and then have the Brotherhood radio in and go, yeah, okay, you can go on ahead, we'll meet you there. When Prime is done liberating the communist threat from the Commonwealth, he shoots a big dumb eye laser into the ground and creates an entrance for us to get into the Institute. Because that's just how that works. I think he threw a nuke in there too, just in case. It's not that bad of a quest from here on out, as I get to raid the place that I was so familiar with before this. I think the best part is just how ruthless the Brotherhood is here in killing any and everyone, including the scientists which aren't fighting, just trying to escape. It's about as brutal as you could hope for with these guys, and eventually I make it to the reactor door, which is sealed shut. So I have to run up to the computer in Sean's office and hack it to get the doors open. The password is loot. Just loot. Apparently these brainiacs were playing 5D chess and reverting back to simple passwords instead of XYZ Pussy Slay 20 ! Well, after I get the doors open, Sean pops out of his cocoon to tell me that I've doomed the Commonwealth. I call him a stupid fucking nerd and dome him with Kellogg's pistol. Then I head over to the reactor, blow it up, and get teleported out of there. The ending has the little robot Sean from earlier running up to me and begging me to save him. This has no effect on the game. Like, honestly, no effect. I'm sure maybe you can talk to him later? I haven't interacted with him at all besides that one time when he thought I was gonna kidnap him. The whole thing is just a failed attempt at making the player feel some emotion for no logical reason. Good writing. Anyways, we teleport out and I blow up the Institute. And then the exact same credit sequence rolls. Exactly the same. Really? Yep. It's become painfully obvious that this is the only sequence that there is. Every other game told you what happened to the various peoples that you've met, the factions that you've interacted with, and the impact that you've had overall on the wasteland. This one just gives you a vague overview of your journey and makes sure to say the line.
War. Changes never. War. Shit. War. Fuck.
Alright, I'm starting to get a headache and only the railroad can cure it. So the list of railroad quests are substantially lower than the Institute or the Brotherhood, which again points to the idea that the devs did not care for it when they were designing it. My first quest is to head back to the Institute and to try to make contact with the person who's been ferrying synths to the surface to help them escape. After contacting them on a terminal, I meet with a guy named Liam and a synth named Z1, who's been aiding Liam in helping synths escape. Liam then says that he has a plan to help a whole load of synths escape in one fell swoop, and tells me that I'll need to retrieve a password to get into one of the old terminals from the surface to do so. So I report back to Desdemona, who gives everyone a rousing speech about how they're going to help so many synths now.
We have a chance at rescuing more synths than we ever dreamed of.
How many synths want to escape, Z1? The ones I know for certain? 13.
Truly an innumerable amount of synths. So I get guided through a tour of the Polymer Labs for the password.
Employment opportunities await in the field of scientific research. Shall we begin your application now?
I don't have time for this.
And then head back to Des to kick off the next part of the plan, which has me getting into contact with the pair from earlier and giving the filthy human the boot from the rest of the operation. Desdemona figured that he'd be too soft to risk other humans being killed over this. So I head back in and convince Z1 to take up arms along with his fellow synth escapees to make a grand getaway. Also, I didn't realize it until just now, but this dude's voiced by Matt Mercer. I don't know why that's important, but it made me happy. Anyways, Desdemona was right in her assessment, as asking Liam about violence potentially breaking out has him telling you that we'd just back down and live to try another day. Nah, that's dumb as hell, this guy's out. So after swaying around in a cafeteria chair for 24 hours straight, I head back to Z1, who tells me that I should kill the guards at the mining site where the synths who are trying to escape are stationed. Then they're going to collapse the tunnel to make it seem like everyone died in a tragic mining accident. Because Lord knows that the Institute isn't thorough enough to try to investigate the corpses of guards with bullets in their heads or, I don't know, try to dig out the cave-in to find 0 bodies. So I head down, throw a couple of bottle cap mines at these clustered assholes, and then the synths go, alright, we'll do the rest. Right on, less work for me. When I return to Z1, I'm given the directive to simply work with Father Moore. This means that I need to do every single Institute quest until they order me to wipe out the railroad. Ugh. I mean, you can argue that New Vegas does this kind of thing too, where many of the quests are the same, such as wiping out the Brotherhood for Mr. House or the NCR or the Legion. But man, it kinda sucks that you have to do all of this over again if you want to gun for the other endings in this game. So obviously we'll skip ahead until we get to the stage where the Institute is ready to attack the railroad again. When all is caught up again through hard work and definitely not console commands at all, Z1 warns me of an impending Brotherhood attack on the railroad. So I haul ass back to the railroad to let them know, and here comes the flood. Well, kind of. There's a good, 15 or so Brotherhood members to take out, which isn't much, but this pretty much follows the trend of the little battle before the big battle that every faction goes through. Except there is a weird point of order here. You remember Paladin Brandis? Dude is not hostile. In fact, when the fighting starts, he begins spraying down his own people too. I don't know what to make of that, but unfortunately the quest does not complete until he dies too. Funnily enough, not even the Brotherhood was technically hostile towards me until I killed Brandis, so there must be some kind of weird logic bug going on here. So next up, Desdemona goes, "Alright, we're gonna kill off the Brotherhood by shooting down the Prydwen." I'm sorry, you're gonna what? You're telling me these C-tier assholes have this capability the entire game? They've just been too weak and stupid to hijack a vertibird until I get there like a glorious shining god to do it for them? I just love the gall of Desdemona going, "Alright, we need a vertibird, go get it." The fuck? Doesn't this sort of thing usually involve a please and thank you? And on top of that, Des claims that because Tinker Tom has a galaxy brain, he can fly a vertibird perfectly with no practice, like he downloaded the information a la The Matrix.
We got ourselves some wheels, or wings, or whatever this is.
This definitely will not go wrong. So the ingenious plan that these guys came up with is as follows. Fly to the Brotherhood of Steel's floating aircraft carrier utilizing a pilot who's never actually flown a vertibird. Don't get shot down by countless other vertibirds and soldiers around the area. Jump off and run onto the Prydwen. Find a place to set an explosive charge from the inside, and then run away while it blows up. Yep, this is what peak intelligence looks like, fellas. No wonder they couldn't pull off this plan that they had on standby for so long. It's literally a suicide mission for anyone except for a deity like the player. So this is how it actually goes. We hijack the plane, Double T does his best to swing us over to the blimp, Deacon does his best to convince the air traffic controller that we're not actually 3 trained circus monkeys in a plane, we land, no one checks to see who's on the vertibird, I run into the ship and every single person on it starts shooting at me. So I sprint through while chugging cola until I plant the charges, and then I run back onto the ship and jump onto the still functioning vertibird. Tom forgets how to fly in a straight line after all that practice that he just had, and then the explosives go off and the airship crashes. My game got so excited by that it crashed for the first time this entire video. Crashing aside, this whole mission really puts the Railroad into perspective. They're like the epitome of maximizing luck and minimizing intelligence. And every single major thing that they've done successfully has been reliant on either me or sheer dumb luck, despite acting like they're this incredible guerrilla warfare symbol of justice in the Commonwealth. Then again, the Brotherhood just lost their commander, their main airship, and countless troops to 7 bottles of Nuka-Cola and a suit of power armor, so it's hard to say who the bigger morons are. So the final mission is another clone of the Brotherhood's final mission. Same route, same objective, same voice lines, except by different and with different people. I will say that Sean wasn't tucked into bed this time for some reason, but whatever. And the ending cinematic is actually identical, as I figured that it would be. God, that annoys me. Alright, final faction time. The Minutemen have the least amount of unique quests yet, which is really a drag. I mean, the amount of potential that these guys have for interesting and unique quests is staggering. The Minutemen have that colonial vibe to them, and they could have easily had you running around and raiding historic sites around the Commonwealth for various history-related weapons, armor, plans, etc. I feel like the devs looked at what they did with Fallout 3's history stuff and went, nah, been there, done that. But there were just as many significant colonial events around the Boston area which occurred and could have been played with. The Railroad at least has quite a few side quests which aren't Radiant, actually the most in the game out of all of the factions. But the Minutemen have absolutely nothing besides heaps and heaps and heaps of Radiant settlement quests. I almost feel like the devs were commanded to put in 4 factions, and they spent all of their time on the Institute, the Brotherhood, and then started on the Railroad. But when the Minutemen rolled around, they just decided to phone it in. This is only further exacerbated by the main quest that you do get. So I get the data from the Institute, give it back to Sturgis, and then talk to Garvey about attacking the Institute. He goes, nah, we're not ready. We need settlements. And this is it. You recruit 8 total settlements and Todd Garvey decides to let you continue to play the game. After the recruitment excursion, I get word that the castle is about to be attacked by the Synths, which leads us to our first and only real unique endgame mission for the Minutemen. After shoring up the castle's defenses while running away from Ronnie, I'm ready for the big battle.
I'm feeling pretty good about our defenses. But it sure wouldn't hurt for you to take a look around and shore up any weak points you see.
Yeah, this is basically a tower defense game with the way that I set it up, though eventually the synths do manage to break my turrets and generators, but that's alright. After all is said and done, it's time to invade the Institute.
Once we reach our target, you'll need this. It's a fusion pulse charge.
But first, take this. It's a fusion pulse charge.
You're gonna need this. It's a fusion pulse charge.
To its credit, the quest does have a 12-minute or so preamble in which you actually claw your way into the Institute through a sewer pipe system before rounding up Garvey and the boys. But after this, it's the exact same thing as always. I will say that Father pops up this time, and I actually have an option to convince him to help me to evacuate as many people as possible, while also shutting down like 3 whole synths so they don't attack us anymore. So that token gesture was kind of neat, and seems to be unique to the Minutemen. And oddly enough, that's it for the Minutemen, as short as that was. The ending rolls, and surprise surprise, it's the same as always. If you do happen to get on the Brotherhood's bad side at any point before or after this, there's also an optional mission to destroy the Prydwen with an artillery strike, which is the easiest that it's ever been. I mean, there's some vertibirds to deal with after it, but it's a very short and sweet excursion. But that's really it for the main part of the game, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm fucking sick of Fallout 4. And it's not that the gameplay got that much more cumbersome. It isn't that I wasn't still enjoying leveling up and upgrading gear and all of that stuff. It was honestly just playing the incredibly poorly written main storyline back-to-back 4 times over. Had the game rewarded you with something more than what it gave you, I'd probably have been feeling a little better about all of this. But as it stands, I'm really worn out despite the good things that the game does do. My big issue with these endings is that they don't feel like endings. They feel more like bigger missions in a chain of regular missions. Like sure, the last quests all seem to be these epic things in their own way, but none of the cinematics which follow feel particularly fulfilling by any means. If I were to take a stab at guessing what happened with this stuff, I'd say that the devs really thought that what makes a finale is a big fight. No matter what, there's gotta be a big fight. If that's there and it's bigger and better than ever, then that makes the ending good. But that's just not the case. Sure, you could argue that New Vegas' endings all involved a big fight, and that's true. But there was a lot of meshing between the different factions, a lot of back and forth interactions between the Boomers and the Brotherhood and the Strip families and the Great Khans, on top of direct conflicts and exchanges between the NCR, the Legion, and Mr. House. Fallout 4's interactions, on the other hand, felt about as hollow as they could possibly be. And this is only echoed by the fact that I was practically forcing myself to complete the game the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th times around. There's a very big reason why I just stopped playing partway through the main story the first time around. And I think I finally reached my answer. It's some of the worst storytelling that I've ever seen from a main quest in a Fallout game. And that's a crying shame because the potential here for a genuinely great story was out of this world. Many of Fallout 4's factions are so one-dimensional that I don't need to play the other faction quests to understand their corresponding factions. I don't feel like I received some incredible new insight on the Railroad that I didn't fully understand just through their introduction alone. I don't feel like the Brotherhood had so much more depth beyond being ruthless tyrants after playing through their side. And don't even get me started on the generic good guys of the game, the Minutemen. The only side that I can really say that I learned a lot about through gameplay was the Institute, which was definitely a good call. But even its ending was pretty damn abrupt, and seemed to rely on the emotional connection that you felt to your son dying, which had about as much impact as someone throwing a piece of popcorn at an airplane. I mean, even Fallout 3's ending had you sacrificing your character to radiation. Or, I guess, one of your allies. It felt finite, and it definitely played out like the ending to a long story. At least until the DLC came around and Bethesda went, shit, fuck, nah, just kidding, you didn't die, because they wrote themselves into a corner. But when I think about New Vegas and how much I learned about the NCR, and how my feelings developed from thinking that they were pretty cool to being pretty annoyed with the varying amounts of stupidity which they brought to the table, or completely gaining a brand new perspective on why the Legion is the way it is, and how it came to be as strong of a faction that it is, it's just a night and day difference between the storytelling practices of these two games. And even if you could argue that the Yes Man route where you do everything for yourself in New Vegas is kind of akin to the Minutemen, in that there really isn't any new startling character development, you're still basically pissing off every major faction and burying them for no other reason than, I can do it better. And that's pretty damn cool. Am I being overly analytical about the constructs of a fictional video game timeline? You bet your ass I am. But it also doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there are so many ridiculous lapses in judgment when coming up with the storyline in Fallout 4. Logistics went out the window in favor of creating a pseudo-emotional, forced story that's supposed to make the player go, wow, that's crazy. And it would probably work if the player shut their brain off instead of thinking for 5 seconds. And that's just it. I'm not diving into complex technicalities like the fusion reactor in the Institute being a nuclear model, when real-life nuclear reactors are fission-based, and going, wow, that's so stupid. Because shit like that really doesn't matter much. And it's a possibility that in the Fallout universe, fusion reactors have just become much more common than in real life. But when the logic hoops that I have to jump through to make your story make sense are a mile wide, it's hard to just ignore it as video game logic. Fallout 4 is such an odd mixture of non-stop fun that you can create for yourself and harrowing, poorly written RPG design. It's really hard to think of it as a story-driven action role-playing game when you compare it to the likes of Knights of the Old Republic, Vampire the Masquerade, The Witcher, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect, and worst of all, the game's predecessor, Fallout New Vegas. To me, it seems like Bethesda's focus has been about making the game as replayable and as action-based as possible. And these are not bad goals to have. There is literally nothing wrong with that being your focus, at least on its own. But when you sacrifice your game's story, and how good the NPCs feel to talk to, and these basic things which previously defined the franchise, it's not a good look for a series that has historically thrived, which has had many resources and money at its disposal to make it as good as it possibly can be. I'll put it this way. If you're looking for an action RPG where you can create your own fun and play how you want to play, Fallout 4 is easily one of the best games in the genre. But if you're looking for an action RPG which is fun to play but still has those memorable moments, those amazing characters that you want to revisit over and over, then Fallout 4 falls flat on its face in just about every sense of the idea. I really do hope that Bethesda has learned from its horrendous Fallout 76 fiasco that people generally want more substance in their Fallout games. You can make the gameplay pretty close to top-notch, but if you cut out the heart of what the series is, it'll only make people indifferent to the game. I feel like Fallout 4's forced interactions, shoddy script, and the way the NPCs were treated as simple quest givers for the most part was the precursor to what 76 became. But I'm also hoping that with the pushback that 76 got, and the continuous buzz about New Vegas' greatness is enough to really help Bethesda reevaluate what made this franchise something special. Or maybe Fallout 5 will just be Fallout 4 Enhanced Edition. Thanks for watching. Sweet, merciful fuck. It's been a while since I've done a video like this, but